Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome you all to the Thursday, October 10th meeting of the Asheboro City Council. It is our regular monthly meeting. Welcome you all here. I would like to ask you or invite you to stand and join me in a moment of silent meditation. I ask that you pray in any manner that you are comfortable, and we'll follow that with a pledge of allegiance. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to remind everyone that this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. If you are addressing the council, I'd ask that you speak clearly into the microphone here at the podium. If council will remember to try to speak into the microphones, sometimes it's very difficult for the public to hear us in our deliberations. This is the appointed time for the public comment period, and if there's anyone in the room. Chief Summers up first. Okay, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself here. Chief Summers of the Fire Department, will you come forward, sir? You are item 3, and I can't count. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Good evening, Mayor, council members, Mr. Ogburn. It's a pleasure to be before you this evening to present the American Red Cross Hero Awards. The Triad chapter of the American Red Cross held its annual Salute to the Heroes Award ceremony Thursday, September the 26th, where it recognized a fallen police officer, first responders, which consisted of Asheboro Fire and Rescue, West Side Fire and Rescue, East Side Fire Department, and a veteran, Red Cross volunteers, and more importantly, several brave citizens. This recognition is a testament to the extraordinary knowledge, skills, and abilities of the Asheboro Fire and Rescue Department personnel. In addition, it illustrates the cooperation and collaboration with our fire service and EMS partners in Randolph County. At this time, I would like to show a short video of the incident and ask Chief Hicks, who is the IC, the incident commander on this complex incident, to come forward with the award and a short summary, a synopsis of the incident itself. Technology will.
Can't live with it. As long as you put out fires.
If you've ever called 911, you probably didn't spend a whole lot of time worrying about which agencies were going to respond or how they might work together. You probably just wanted help and as quickly as possible. There was an unusual single-car crash in Asheboro not that long ago that brought out departments from all over the county, and the Red Cross says all of them are heroes.
I've been in the fire service for 23 years, and it's the first time for me, yeah.
It was a weird incident.
It was crazy. You normally don't see a car that high off the ground.
Did you know what you were getting into?
No.
April April 10th, 2023, a driver sent their car down a retaining wall into the back of the Verizon store on East Dixie Drive in Asheboro and got stuck 12 feet off the ground. The Asheboro Fire Department got the call. Battalion Chief Ben Hicks was in charge at the scene.
The driver was still in the car, so we all had to put our game face on and go to work pretty quick.
He says the first thing they had to do was stabilize the car because you couldn't treat the driver or get that person out if the car might suddenly drop. And that wasn't their only challenge.
We were worried about structural collapse too because it was in the building. The building was occupied, so we had to evacuate the building. And where the car hit the building was where the power came into the building, so we had that to worry about too.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Chief Hicks.
As Chief Summers said, I'm here to report to you guys on the award that we received from the American Red Cross for our response to the incident at the Verizon building. Chief Summers already kind of hit on it, but teamwork was a big part of the incident. And according to the Red Cross, this award is for the actions of ordinary individuals, or the extraordinary actions of ordinary individuals. And as far as those extraordinary actions are concerned, I was the incident commander that day, but the real credit goes to the firefighters who were there and who put in the work to make sure the incident came out successfully. Again, teamwork was a big thing. We weren't the only recipients of this award. We shared it with the West Side Fire Department and the East Side Fire Department because both departments responded at our request to assist us. And also we worked with the Randolph County EMS and the Asheboro Police Department. If it wasn't for all those agencies coming together and working together, we could have never got that lady out of the car and we would have never got that award. And I also want to emphasize that that spirit of teamwork goes beyond just the emergency operations. If it wasn't for the support that the city administration and the city council has given the fire department, this incident would not have turned out the way it was. It was only a few short years ago where the Asheboro Fire Department had very little rescue equipment. And now we're heavy rescue certified. We've got a full complement of confined space equipment, and we're well on our way to getting the trench equipment we need. And if it wasn't for the support that you guys gave us, that would have never happened. I'll pass the award around and let you guys look at it.
Thank you.
When do we get it? Yeah. When do we get it? You were there, right?
Oh, yeah. You can come look at it whenever you want to.
Break out your binoculars.
No, but like I said on the video, I've been doing this for 24 years, and that's the first time I've ever ran anything like that. It was an unusual call. It was a highly technical call, and everybody came together and worked well together, went off without a hitch. I know from the time we were dispatched to the time we had the woman out of the car was only 16 minutes. I mean, that includes our response time and everything. The time it took to stabilize the vehicle, everything we had to do, size up the building, make sure, it was safe. We did all that within 16 minutes. So, like I said.
Almost like we on TV, didn't it?
Yeah, I felt like I was in a movie. Yeah. But, yeah, I'm proud of the ladies and gentlemen that I work with. And like I said, although I accepted the award, I really accepted it on their behalf, and that's where the credit really lies.
Chief Summers, how long has it been, Chief Summers, how long has it been since you were officially changed to fire and rescue?
It's been approximately, don't quote me on this, but I would say 3 years.
3 years.
Yes.
And it took a lot of training, a lot of hard work, and as Chief Hicks said, they're doing a lot of trench rescue training now and getting equipment for that. So we're proud to know that the citizens of Asheboro are represented by not just a first-class fire department, but a department that is recognized as fire and rescue. And it's my understanding, and just, I'm talking to the audience here, Asheboro Fire and Rescue is ISO 1 certified as of about a year and a half ago.
That's correct.
And that is the highest rating of a fire department in the state of North Carolina. And there are just slightly over 20 fire departments in all of North Carolina that are rated ISO 1. So not only are we proud of the rescue training that you've done and being able to say we are fire and rescue, we are doubly proud to know that you have accomplished all the training it took to be ISO 1 rated.
Thank you. In addition, Mayor, you know, that ISO 1 rating can be contributed to the city collectively. It's not just Asheboro Fire and Rescue. We have to look at the water department, communications. So it was a collaborative effort. It's a team. And as Chief Hicks alluded to, the commitment and dedication of the firefighters on Asheboro Fire and Rescue Department is second to none. And I'm here to say you probably got one of the best, if not the best, and I might be a little biased standing up, if not the best fire department in this country. Amen. And the people, like Chief Hicks, I'm telling you, since I've been here, it's just been an honor and a joy for these individuals to allow me to take this journey with them. And it's been in my lifetime, it's one of the highlights of my professional career. So,
Well,
and I want to say this community has one of the best fire departments in the country. Commitment
it's
and
obvious
dedication.
it starts at the top.
Yeah. So,
And if you truly feel that way, I'm willing to let you work another 4 or 5 years.
it's been great.
Chief is a short timer. I'm sorry to say that, but not only has he helped us get there and has those great memories and great credentials, but he is fast approaching his retirement date, and we're not happy about that at all.
Could the chiefs give us a summary of the firemen's work in Western North Carolina? What went on there?
Because, like we always say, now we deployed 2 teams.
Okay.
We've deployed 2 teams, and I want to bring those individuals before the council, maybe at the November meeting, and they can give you a more intimate detail of what transpired in the Western North Carolina. And I can sit here and say, just sitting down and talking to them, it's unimaginable. It really is unimaginable. However, when we sent out a request for volunteers, my gosh, men and women, they were ready to go. They were ready to go. We had to hold them back. And I can't sit here and speak for the police department, but I'm sure it was the same with APD. And I think APD has 9 officers up there.
Yeah, currently 9
Yeah,
deployed.
yeah.
Currently 9 deployed to the mission and doing everything from site security to roving patrol, blocking bridges and roads because so much out of there, so dangerous. And they have had some looting. You know, I'm not judging that, but I don't know what the extent of that is. But Doing a great job up there, those men and women are. And we have 5 more on deck, ready to go to, actually, this will be to Montreat, to help the Montreat Police Department, which has been devastated as well.
The community can be proud of public safety.
We are proud. You answered the call immediately and sent a fire crew and a vehicle.
Yes, sir.
And they did their time and came back and rotated out. And then the second crew went, and the police departments had officers up there for a week and a half, 2 weeks now.
Couple, week, basically.
Yeah.
Back.
So, I found out today our officers are staying in the Hampton, but the Hampton has power but no water. I mean, no water. And, so not only is it difficult and hazardous duty, it's not very relaxing to be off.
It's just absolutely, it's just devastating, just absolutely devastating.
So we're proud of you. Appreciate both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, now's the time for number 3, but I'll sit down on this. I'll just say that for the men and women of the Asheboro Police and Fire Department, I think I would sum it up best by following up on what's on the Iwo Jima Memorial, and it says, uncommon valor is a common virtue.
Well said. Thank you. Okay, now I can go to 4. This is the appointed time for the public comment period. If you are on the agenda, or an item that you are concerned about is on the agenda a little bit later in the meeting, then you don't need to speak now. But if you have an item of concern about the city or city operations or anything involving the council, now would be the right time to share that with the council. And I would ask that if anyone that speaks, we'd like for you to print your name in this book up here. And the purpose for that is when we transcribe the audio tape, it sometimes is difficult to get the correct name, the spelling, and whatnot. So if you will print your name in the book when you speak, we don't require you to sign up or anything, but if you want to speak, just when you come up, print your name in the book. Sir, I will allow you to be first since you're ready.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask about the dog park that's going in the sports complex. I have no idea what the time frame is.
We have a contract lit with the clearing and grubbing to finish it underneath. We have the materials ready to go, and that contractor gets in there. We hope to have it up by Thanksgiving.
Thank you, sir.
That's our target date.
That's all.
I will say this, though, a lot of the contractors are heading west, but we hope we can get him done and get him out.
In so many cases, we are at the mercy of the contractor and their timeline, but we know how important that is to the citizens and how many people like yourself are anxious to see it open. And it will be a dog park that is segregated into 2 sections by size.
Perfect.
And a double entry lock, gated area, to secure the animal in transition. So, we're excited about getting it done. We just ended up with it being last on the list.
Understood. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here, sir. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to address the council? Come on up, sir.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name's Talo Fenberg. I was notified of this meeting because Moffitt's Incorporated intends to request a rezoning of their property, which is adjacent to mine. And on behalf of my family and neighbors, I'm requesting that you delay approval of Moffitt's Incorporated petition until such time. Yes, sir.
It's on the agenda. You want to hold your comments till that one?
You
Oh, I
will
beg your
be-
pardon.
Yes.
You will be allowed to make those
I
comments
misunderstood.
Yeah. That's
during
quite
that
all right.
item.
Quite all right. Did you get an agenda, sir? I did. I'll get you one.
Michael's got one for him.
Thank you, Mike.
If anyone else in the room that did not get an agenda, they're usually in the pocket on the door, and it will give you a little map of what comes up next, in spite of what the mayor might think. Sir, Mr. Fenberg, you will be allowed to speak at the item, when the item itself comes up. Anyone else in the room that would like to address Clarice, come on up.
Hello, my name's Clarice Johnson. I was Clarice Presnell Johnson, and I grew up in Asheboro. My family settled here in the late 1600s, so I have a long history of Randolph County. And before I have some comments and a couple of questions, I just wanted to ask the council, besides Mayor Smith and Mr. Bell, how many of you were born and raised in Asheboro?
I was not born, but raised.
Raised?
I got here when I was 6 months.
Okay, so y'all were raised in Asheboro, so you know the others don't know all of what all Asheboro's been through the years. Asheboro's, we lived away from here for many, many years. My family and I moved back here 3 years ago. And I said I'd never move back to Asheboro because I couldn't wait to get away from here when I grew up. I don't know, it was just not somewhere I wanted to live. And it had nothing, really. And we'd go to Randleman to get beer or whatever, you know, at an underage.
No.
I know you weren't in my car, Mayor. Anyway, but I'm just saying, Asheboro has progressed a lot. We lived away for 27 and a half years. And, of course, I would come back here every week for Bible study, but I also noticed how Asheboro revitalized, and it just grew quite a bit, and I think that's wonderful. But I had some questions that are concerning to me because as an Asheboroan and somebody that loves this place, I'm almost wondering what happened to certain things or why certain things were allowed. And I don't know if you will directly answer my questions. I just have them to put before you. I want to know because I've just seen some things and it really hurts. And it's like, what's going on? Has the soul of the city gotten lost or something? And that's all I'm asking you. If you can answer me or not. But my first question, sir?
Let me just say up front, during the public comment period, we normally try not to answer questions and engage in dialogue because sometimes we have a lot of people that want to speak.
Okay.
And what we generally will do, we'll take these questions and get answers for you and get back with you at a later date. If it's something that we can answer in just a short, brief statement, then we might engage. But our general rule is we try not to engage in lengthy discussion.
I understand that. It can carry on and.
Ask your questions and we'll see what we
Okay.
can do.
Some of these would be a yes or no, okay? So my first question is, do you know that homeless people are allowed to be brought in by a bus and dropped off in the city?
Yes, we know that very well.
Okay. May I ask if it's been approved by our city council?
Council doesn't have the authority to approve that or not.
May I ask, sir, who would approve that?
Whoever got on the bus, there's no approval mechanism.
But that isn't there some sort of, I want to say guard or something that you vet people that are coming into our city that are not from here? And I know you can't vet people, I'm sorry, maybe that's the wrong word, but that people that are coming here and being dropped off in our city, and being left here, and they're homeless. They're camping in parks or y'all know this. Y'all know this, right?
Absolutely.
And so, okay,
As a mayor, I can tell you that is the biggest issue I have faced in the last 5 years. Homeless people in our community. We have met and met and met, and we have worked with the
It may
DA,
be
and we
easier for us
worked
to-
with the police, and
And it may be easier for us to tell you, if you want to just give the mayor your name and number, then the mayor and I will sit down with you and tell you everything we've got going on and how, and what we do to combat that and that type of thing.
The questions, I appreciate everything you just said and quite frankly agree with you, but I'm afraid these questions might be better directed at council as to what is legal or not legal. In that sort of prohibition or not.
The Constitution allows people to travel, so.
well, I understand that, sir. But as our city council, I mean, aren't you sort of our guardians of our city? I mean, we elect you all to sort of stand for what the people believe in and what affects the community. So, I mean, am I wrong in assuming that you all are sort of the guardians of our city and represent what the people feel?
And we abide by what the Constitution allows us to do. When we take an oath and we vow to support the Constitution, and the Constitution doesn't say, I have a guard at the city limits, and you can come in and you cannot.
Okay,
We cannot deny people from coming into the city.
okay.
But I do think that there's a lot of issues in the homeless population.
Yes, sir.
And we've had council meetings just on the homeless population. So I do think it would be better for the mayor and I to sit down and talk to you. We have employees assigned to homelessness. We work it all the time. We work with the hospital and the drug treatment agency. It'd be easier for us to sit down and spend some time talking to you about it.
Okay.
it is not something that we're happy about. It is not something.
Nor do
If
we
there
accept
was
or
an
tolerate.
answer, we would have certainly availed ourselves to that a long time ago, but it is a nationwide problem.
Yes.
And some of it is directly related to drug and alcohol addiction. Some of it is a lifestyle choice.
Mental health.
And mental health. And we work with the mental health people. We work with the emergency, the EMS for Randolph County and the DA and the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department. And we have task force meetings where we try to figure out exactly how to address this. And we close camps. We have a city employee that does almost nothing, code enforcement, that does almost nothing except close homeless camps. And we move them out of this one and they pop up over here, and they pop up over here, and we are cleaning up homeless camps every other day in Asheboro.
But I would also say the bus runs two ways.
Well, I hope it is. I hope it is. Thank you.
So you say you put them on the bus and you ship them out then?
I would say the bus runs two ways.
Okay. Okay, thank you for answering that. My other question is, do you know if there are illegal immigrants in this town? Do you all, any of you all know?
If there are
Illegal immigrants that have crossed the border illegally and not gone through the process and are in Asheboro, because I've noticed, I grew up in North Asheboro. North Asheboro is not the North Asheboro I grew up in. I personally am not prejudiced over any race or group of people. Anybody that goes into any city and adapts, they have their own way of lifestyle. They don't have to clean up their yards like we normally would. They can live however. I understand that. Peaceful people. Our district attorney, Andy Gregson, has told me personally that we had no murders in Randolph County last year in 2023. I think that's amazing because I left Greensboro because of a lot of the things that go on there. But my question to you all, because immigration is the #1 issue in America, whether anybody wants to face it or not, it's the #1 issue. It's destroying the fabric of our country. And I wanted to know, as a citizen of Asheboro, if you all know if there are illegals in this town. Does anybody know?
Oh, we're absolutely certain there are illegals in this town. Undocumented.
Undocumented. Illegal is a little
Yeah,
bit.
Well, excuse me, undocumented immigrants.
Yeah.
Undocumented.
And there's a black market out there that provides them a ID to work, a social security number to work, and that type of thing. And as much as you try not to, or to vet them through that process, it's almost impossible to stop that. And they stay under the radar. They keep their head down, they go to work, they save their money. And I'm not defending any of them by a long shot, but there are businesses in this town that would not be able to operate were it not for some of the undocumented workers.
Well, aren't there enough documented workers that live here to work in these businesses? So all of the businesses that have another nationality besides North Carolinians or Southerners, that they're allowed to work, and that's okay because it helps them function better or easier? Is that kind of what you're saying?
No, ma'am. What we're saying is that if the employer participates in the I-9 program, they check the person's citizenship status when they're hired.
So it's really
But
up
the
to an
city
employer?
participates in that
It's
program.
up to the federal government. It's not within our purview to regulate.
Sir, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, but I disagree with that because I know history as well, and I know that our founding fathers gave the states the right to govern themselves, and we have the 3 branches, and the states were allowed to run their own state, and the federal government, unlike it's happening now, was only there's an overseer to be sure that things did not get out of hand, so to speak. So I'm sorry, sir, but respectably, I disagree with that. We shouldn't allow the federal government to control our state or even any decisions in this city.
Well, I'll be glad to agree with you on that point.
Okay.
The city does participate.
We're a city,
If
we're
we
not
have,
the state.
if we have a crime and we think the person or the person is the committer of the crime.
Yes, sir.
The city does notify ICE, Immigration and Customs.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Other than that, that's the only contact we have with the immigrant.
so
We
basically,
do have officers assigned to Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, Explosives Task Force. We do have officers assigned to the Homeland Security Investigations Task Force. He primarily does human trafficking. And we have an officer assigned to the Federal DEA Task Force. So we do have police officers assigned as part of those large
yes, sir.
police functions.
And the Invictus Project is a phenomenal project connected with our Sheriff's Department and city that's trying to prevent human trafficking going on.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And it's phenomenal here in Asheboro.
And we do.
Project Safe Neighborhood is something else that would participate in it, that tries to get a lot of these people out of our neighborhoods, the criminal element. You made a part of your question addressed yards that weren't kept and this and that. We have a code enforcement office and a thick book of regulations and codes, and you cannot get away with not mowing your yard in Asheboro. Our code enforcement people write violations all the time. They're out there talking to somebody that says, you know, if the grass is knee-high, he's out there asking you to mow it. And there are occasions when a foreclosed home that is in the various stages of foreclosure that is not being attended to by the mortgagor, the loan originator. We will clean that up ourselves. We'll send a crew over there to mow it because
Build a bank.
the bottom line is, I don't want my next door neighbor ignoring his yard any more than he wants me ignoring my yard. And we just don't accept that. Our code doesn't allow that. So we have code enforcement people that spend a lot of time making sure that there are standards in our code that are met as the way you keep your property. Junk cars, not mowing, not cleaning up, you know. But then again, what is allowed by law is not always what we would like to do.
And Mr. Mayor, I know there are a lot more important things that you guys have to consider besides how neat somebody's yard is or that sort of thing. And I'm certainly not making an issue of that at all. I was
That's
just,
part of what we do.
yeah, okay, thank you. I was just,
I think one question you're asking is, there was a seismic shift in our economy here in 2008. The illegal immigration, undocumented immigration population is substantially smaller now. By and large, the families you see here are by and large have come across properly.
excuse me, sir, but recently, in the past 2 years, you would say that?
No, ma'am, that was in 2008.
Okay,
We used to have houses that were full of single men, for example.
right.
They by and large were, we can assume that they did not have proper documentation. Families that buy houses and have their kids enrolled in school, they by and
Yes, sir.
large have work visas
Properly done.
and are properly documented, and the mass majority on them are on their way to citizenship.
Okay. Well, I have one more question, and fortunately, sir, I'm not here every month. So I was just getting all of my questions in at one time, okay?
You go right ahead.
Okay, so my last question would be, I've noticed the huge chip factory on 64, which straddles, as you all know it, straddles Randolph and Chatham County. My friend, our classmate Prissy Grass, sold her land and house there for them, part of it. But my question to you is, where's all that water going to come from for them? I've been told it's going to come from Randolph County. And if that,
It's coming from Asheboro and the Randleman Dam, the Randleman Reservoir.
okay, I'm just curious as
Piedmont Trod Water Authority.
FEMA TROG,
No, Piedmont Triad Water Authority.
yes, sir.
The Randleman Lake that you
Yes,
cross
sir.
on going
I've been there and we're having our well water tested for that. Yes, sir. I know that place. My question to you is that going to affect the water in Asheboro for the people of Asheboro that live here? Is that going to have any effect at all? Because that place is humongous.
That will actually help the water here in Asheboro.
Okay, sir, in what way? Do you mind if I ask?
Because our plant is rated at 9 million gallons a day. We only run about 5.25 million gallons a day. It'll make our plant more efficient, and it'll mean that we run more water through our plant, and the fluoride and the treatment processes are actually, it's more optimum.
You don't want water sitting in the
You don't want
pipes.
water sitting
No,
in
no,
the
no.
pipes.
But
We have excess capacity water. For
you have what, sir?
We have excess capacity.
Okay, so that's not
Water
going to be a
for our
problem for that humongous, okay.
No, it's actually a blessing.
Is it?
Yes,
You
ma'am.
mind if I ask in what way?
And again,
Volume.
when I came
Back
here
to
in,
the water volume he was talking about, that also brings monetary volume.
when I came here
And we're nowhere near capacity, even with them. because
Okay.
of the rationing ratio, the ratio with the Piedmont Triad. So we'll still have water reserve.
So that's nothing to be concerned about as a citizen. I've just had a couple of,
We don't think so.
okay.
We don't think so.
No, ma'am.
I mean,
In fact,
we really don't believe that's an issue.
Okay.
In fact, you're already paying for 1.25 million gallons a day at a Piedmont Triad Regional Water Authority that the county owns, that Randolph County owns, that we all in here pay for, that the county doesn't buy a drop of.
The county not in the water business.
No.
But in the initial startup of the Randleman project, the county bought in, like Jamestown and High Point, and Greensboro and Randleman, and they all bought in. And so they've been paying a pro rata share all along. When the plant expands, they pay their share of that. And they own, originally they owned 6 million gallons a day, and they're not in the water business.
That's
They have
awesome.
no distribution system. So the legislature, it goes back to all the chips that we depend on for our cars and our computers and everything are made in Asia, overseas. And the federal government came up with an incentive plan that said that we will help financially support anybody that wants to build chips in the United States, because we can't be dependent on foreign countries that really would just as soon us not be around.
Right.
So if the chip manufacturers in Asia were to stop making chips for one reason or another, the first thing that we would lose is our car business and a lot of our computer business and everything else. So that's how Wolfspeed ended up building this chip plant. And everybody makes a silicon chip. Wolfspeed came up with a carbon silicon chip, which is the next step in progression. It's a better chip, and before they get that place open, somebody else will come up with even a better chip. So
That will be the largest computer chip plant in the world when it's finished.
Really?
The advantage for Asheboro in eastern Randolph County is the jobs in that plant pay about $28,000 or $30,000 more than the average manufacturing job here in Randolph County. So you take somebody from Asheboro High and somebody from eastern Randolph High, they go out there, they can make about $80,000 a year when they're fully trained up. And that, without community college, without a undergraduate or a master, just a good manufacturing job. If those two people in that little scenario I mentioned, if they get married, that's $160,000 a year for a two-income family. That money will be spent here in Asheboro and spent around the county.
we hope.
And those lines will spur further development.
Greensboro further development.
So the legislature wanted this chip factory to happen. And they came to us because we have excess water. We were selling 7 million back when we had the two dye houses, Champagne Dye and Sara Lee. And they both closed in the same year, moved out of town. One of them went bankrupt, the other one moved out of town. And we went to 3.5 million on a plant that's capable of making 9 million.
And easily expandable to 12.
We need to sell water. So we have an excess. Our reservoirs are Lake Reese,
Okay.
Lake Lucas, and we're still drawing off occasionally of the Lake Bunch and McCreary. Is that it? Two of the original 3 lakes, and we find that to be the best water we have. I mean, that is good water, and we draw off of those lakes periodically to make sure that when we need them, the equipment works, the water's good. You know, we do that periodically just to make sure that they are still good standby resources. So we have plenty of water. We need to sell some water. We're running a water line from North Asheboro to the Piedmont Triad Water Authority, the treatment plant there at Randleman Lake. And they will be contributing water to our system, which will ultimately go to Wolfspeed. In that process, we expect to be making eastern Randolph County more, open more of that area for residential development. You know, we have no water system in Randolph County. Most counties do have a municipal water system that serves the whole county. So we need places for people to live, and if we can run water up to Liberty and down to Coleridge and Ramseur and over to the county line, then that helps the whole county with this growth issue that's coming. So all of that is part of the decision we made to sell 3 million gallons a day to Wolfspeed.
Okay. Okay, well, as I'm walking away, last question. The roads in Asheboro are terrible.
We know. Yep.
I've tried to call your office, sir, several times, and it goes to voicemail and nobody calls back, only because this reason. I just wondered if we have any excess money. I mean, I'll give you one example, Cooper Street. That's just one of many. All of the roads in Asheboro, they're terrible. And I just wondered, is there not money anywhere to fix our streets and our roads in this city?
Walker?
There certainly should be.
Walker wants, he's been pushing us for years to do a more comprehensive repaving. We repave streets in every budget. We set aside money to repave streets. Unfortunately, there's more streets that need to be repaved than we can afford to do at one time. But periodically, and Cooper's bad, Hoover's bad, you name
Lots.
it. You name
Everywhere.
it, they're all bad.
Yeah.
And some of the worst ones are DOT streets. Elm Street down here.
Yes.
Elm and Salisbury.
Yes.
It's like, you know, when you run through the house and you put the brakes on the rug and the rug kind of bunches up. That's what that feels like when you get to that stoplight at Elm Street. It looks like every big truck that stops there pushes that pavement a little bit further down the hill.
Well, is there not money for this, or y'all just other priorities that's taking precedent?
We pave streets, repair streets year-round, and there's money in this year's budget, and we do it in the springtime.
And we have a patch truck that paves. We paved Sunset Avenue ourselves.
We've been working on that.
Paved Parkview, and we paved the worst streets first.
To more specifically answer your question, to have a comprehensive street renovation program will require approximately $5 million. And that money really should come from a general obligation bond referendum instead of spending $5 million cash on it. And I think, and I have recommended that, and I think it's time for it looked at, and I certainly appreciate you bringing that to our forefront of our attention.
Well, sir, I would say to that there are a lot of people, maybe some in this room, whose taxes were raised greatly this past year. They're saying, where's my tax money going? And they'd love to see their roads fixed. And with that, I'm sorry. I know I've taken a lot of time, and I'm sure you're grateful. I don't come here very often, but I love this city. I love David. I've known him since high school, and Clark since he was in high school. And, sorry, Mr. Bell. But anyway, these things have just piled up, and I just wanted to come. Thank you for your time and allowing me just to share my concerns. And thank you. Hopefully some of you will take them to heart and think about them. And, yeah, we'll just look to make things better.
I think you've made many extraordinary points, and I thank you for it. serious. I mean, these are all issues that need to be addressed.
Okay,
He's been pushing us for years, doing a general obligation bond for streets.
okay, thank you.
Streets and sidewalks.
Thank you very
Well, and
much.
just to reiterate one point I think the mayor was making is sometimes you think it's a city street and it's actually a state street. I mean, that's one thing when I joined council, I started looking at maps and realizing that some streets that I thought were city streets actually aren't.
Really?
They're in the city limits, but they're state streets.
Exactly.
Really?
Yes.
And just in a nutshell, Salisbury, Presnell, Sunset, from here to the bypass. Kivett? Get it?
Parks of Givet, Parks of Givet, Parks of Cliff, Parks of Uwari.
And then.
Parts of Glenwood.
North
Parts of
and
Glenwood.
south, we're talking about, these are the ones everybody knows. Park Street, Church Street, Cox Street, and Main Street. You know, not Main.
Fayetteville?
So a lot of those, there are a lot of DOT maintained streets in town. Not every street in the city limits is a city street under our authority. So, I mean, that's just the way it is.
But Cooper Street is, and we'll check that one.
Well, maybe somebody can make a call to DOT and get it handled someday.
We do, ma'am. We do,
Okay.
ma'am, all the time.
All the time.
Well, give me their number, I'll just
All the
help y'all out,
All
okay?
the time.
Thank y'all very much, I appreciate your time, okay?
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else that would like to address council? Come on up, Pat. Turns out I know everybody.
I've been here before. My name is Pat Hall. I just want to follow up on a question that I had concerning what Clarice brought up and the homeless population, and especially downtown. And so I've seen a big shift in the homeless population downtown, and we have friends that own businesses down there. And so now they're walking their employees out when it's dark, because they go out and there's human feces on their sidewalks, and they actually see people doing that. And you're aware of that, I'm sure, because it was right in front of Full Moon. And then a couple of other places downtown. And so I just want to know, I mean, I think that Asheboro used to have police, like foot patrol, and isn't there a way to provide some safety for our local businesses that we're trying to support down there? And we'd love to go down there and eat, but it starts feeling a little sketchy after dark.
Our longtime concern is shops and businesses that are staffed by one woman, and she has to walk to her car this time of year when it's starting to get dark, with probably a bank bag in her pocketbook.
Oh, yeah.
And our police, we do have foot patrols. We have downtown officers assigned to security downtown. They are instructed and do a relatively good job of moving these people out. I mean, there again, public property, public space. This is America, and we have people that will challenge us, say, you can't make me leave, the homeless. But 3 months ago, I come through town every morning at 6:15, 6:30, headed to work, and all of a sudden I noticed people sleeping on Sunset Avenue, and they were everywhere. And I think they got their heads together and said, let's show them. And they were sleeping in where the ATM is for First Horizon Bank, right there on the corner of Fayetteville and Sunset. Somebody sleeping in there because there was an electrical outlet. He could charge his phone. And so we got them to disconnect that outlet. There were two sleeping in front of Bob Wilhoit's office on the sidewalk. And so anywhere we find an outlet or a receptacle like that, we've asked the owners to disconnect it so that it won't be attracted. First Methodist Church, The three of them that were sleeping on the front porch at First Methodist Church, police went over and ran them off and said all three of them had devices plugged into the receptacles on the front porch. So they're very resourceful. They're trying to find, and Bicentennial Park, they figured out we had receptacles over there. So,
We've taken up a lot of the, excuse me, picnic tables around too, that we hate to do that, but we did
Sure.
just, and especially because the days are getting shorter.
Right.
We'll put them back in the springtime when
we have
school gets out and
benches,
family comes
you know,
down.
downtown benches in front of a lot of businesses, and those benches are relatively expensive for what they are, and we've had to take many of those up because people are trying to sleep on them.
Right.
Police come through town, they get them up, they run them off, they just go somewhere else. They come right back when the police drive off. It's a nationwide problem, and it is getting worse here just like it's getting worse everywhere. And it's heartless for me to say this, but if I could, as Clary said, make it illegal, I damn sure would, because it's affecting our quality
It
of
is.
life.
It is.
And our safety. They are breaking in. They are creating, and a guy called me one morning and said, I'm missing something from my shop. Where's the closest homeless camp? So I told him the one I knew about, and he walks in over there. I would have taken a police officer with me, but he walked in and guy had it right there in front of him. He said, you stole, and the guy said, so? He picked it up and carried it off. You know, so the trash that they're creating,
Yeah.
the crime that they're promoting, it's just not acceptable to me as a mayor. And as heartless as that sounds, I'm damn tired of it.
Yep. Well, I just noticed, I mean, we hadn't lived back here very long, and I just noticed a big shift, and just the safety issue.
Well, we made a big dent in it, and we have a whole new crop of, now, we're kind of at a disadvantage here, the same way Lexington and Thomasville are. We have the hospital here.
Yeah.
We have drug treatment here. We have the court system in the jail here. So a lot of these people are brought to the hospital for whatever is almost always a mental health or substance abuse. When they're stabilized, if their family or somebody won't come get them, they're just out. If they're in jail and they're released, they're just on the street. We work with the hospital and the jail, and Trillium, used to be Daymark, now it's Trillium.
Right.
We work with them to get those people back where they came from as hard as we can, but that's some of the Asheboro's issues, because we have the, you know, and a lot of them, we do, when we find a camp, we send the code enforcement officer, a police officer, and the navigator, the social services navigator. And we have an objective, and the objective's to connect them to mental health and drug abuse, or get them on their feet and keep them moving, not to settle.
Right.
So a lot of those people you saw out there are just stoned. When they hold up the sign, we move them out the right of way, homeless,
Most of them
veteran,
don't want
lost
Oh, I
my
get that.
house.
I know that.
That's almost never the case. They're always just addicted.
Right.
It's
And it's the opioid crisis, and the opioid crisis is primarily a rural crisis. It's just worse in West Virginia, Western Virginia, Ohio. It's not just in, you know, what we think of,
Right.
the old cocaine was an urban crisis.
we wonder how they get here. We encountered two recently, and one of them said, I'm from Connecticut, and the other was from Pennsylvania. And they were homeless here. And our code enforcement guy says, how'd y'all get here? I mean, how'd you choose Asheboro? We just heard it was a good place to live.
Oh, wow.
And
Like go to Florida, you won't be
some
cold.
of it is a lifestyle choice.
Right.
We're familiar with a guy that works 40 hours in a good paying job, and he, his wife, and his 2 kids live out in the woods, on somebody else's property. They're trespassing. But it's their choice because they don't wanna pay a power bill and a water bill and rent. I mean, you know, it's just, it runs the gamut. It's not all drug related or addictions, but most of it is. But it is a lifestyle choice for some of them.
But some of it, and there's a lot of, mental health and drug addiction that goes
Hand in hand, they
hand
do.
in glove.
All right, thank you. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And this, I'll add what the mayor says about being heartless. It doesn't really help as much as people want to. It doesn't help to give them bicycles or give them clothes. And churches do it, that I'm supposed to love your neighbor as yourself. But that reinforces their attitude that what they're doing is okay.
It's classic enabling.
It's enabling.
And it just makes it worse on everybody else. So,
But we're working it all the time.
all the time. That is the number one issue that I've been dealing with, for my last 5 years, 6 years, when it just blew up. And I talk to code enforcement almost every day about a camp that I'm aware of, that I've found, or that it needs to be closed down. And we'll close one down, and the same people pop up 100 yards down the street in another patch of woods. We're bulldozing a patch of woods. What we started doing is mowing them down to the ground, so there's no place to hide, that you can see the camp. And camps aren't the biggest problem now. I don't know where these people are staying, but we gotta handle them, most of the camps. So, anyway, I'm sorry, that's a soapbox issue for me, and I could sit here and talk about it and give you, anecdotes all night long, cause it is the biggest problem that I deal with. And our city resources. Okay, anyone else? All right, well. Council, you have in front of you a consent agenda. I'd like to request that we remove, staff has requested that we remove item B, 5B, because there are a couple of things in those minutes that need some clarification. They will be presented at next month's meeting. So, with the exception of 5B, is there anything on the consent agenda that council members would like to remove for individual consideration? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as is presented minus 5B.
Mayor, I'll make the motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented minus 5B.
We have a motion by Ms. Heath. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burks. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Consent agenda is approved, minus 5B. All right, item 6. Mr. Nuttall. The first item is 6A. It's a legislative hearing. And I know many of you are here for this because this request in and of itself creates a lot of questions for people in the area of the zoo. So this is case RZ-24-12. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for the record, that was a typo on the agenda. The case number should be 24-13 as indicated on the screen. This is the time for public hearing. This matter has been properly advertised and noticed as required by state law. We are talking about property that was relatively recently annexed into the city limits by an act of the General Assembly. Under state law, the city has to apply city zoning to all property within its jurisdiction, and this evening that's what we are asking to do. So this request is filed by the city to ensure compliance with state law. We're looking at a number of parcels, over 2,200 acres in total. The property addresses that are assigned are contained within the report. Probably the best way to identify the property are those various PINs or parcel identification numbers that are within that report. We're asking the council to apply two different zoning districts depending on the present land use and the location of those properties. The first is an application of R40 or low-density residential zoning to the more rural or vacant properties that are subject to this request. The other district requested is the city's tourism and hospitality zoning, and that would be applicable upon our recommendation to property that is actively used as a part of the zoo operations or in close proximity that in the future it may be so used. As I said, over 2,200 acres in total size, so this is probably one of the larger applications of city zoning that we've done. Here's an overview map. It identifies all of the area that's included with this request. I will note that the area of purple in the center of that map there, actually under a previous petition by the Zoo Society, had already come into the city limits, and the city had, under prior action, applied tourism and hospitality zoning to the property. It was, however, included in the legislation that passed, and so we are including it again in our action here this evening to make clear that the property is in fact zoned as a part of this process. Within your report, I won't read this, but we've provided the definition of the R40 residential district as well as a definition of the tourism and hospitality district for you and the public to review. In order to communicate this action here this evening, there were a number of sign postings that occurred throughout this area. We also sent notice by first-class mail to all adjoining property owners who are in the vicinity of these parcels being zoned, and this has also been published in the newspaper. So those notices went out on two occasions by the city. One was in August to notify citizens of the September Planning Board meeting, and then we followed up with a subsequent notification in September notifying the public of this hearing this evening. We have provided a topographic and utilities map in your packets. At this scale, you can really see the peaks and the valleys as demonstrated by the topography. We have an aerial map here just to give you an idea, help you to determine what land uses are occurring out there. As I quickly go through the analysis here, I've already mentioned this is necessary because of legislation that passed. I believe it was actually last year that this passed with an effective date of July 1. We are looking at property that's in three distinct ownerships. The first is Zoological Authority, the second is the Zoo Society property, and the third is some variation of the two, but it is all either zoo, publicly owned property, or land owned by the Zoo Society. Much of the surrounding area, as I'm sure you all know, is zoned by Randolph County and is characterized by very low-density residential zoning under the county's jurisdiction. The recommendations that we put forward with this application do our best to mimic what has been in place under the county zoning. So in areas where we're recommending a R40 or low-density residential zoning, that's the closest thing that we have to what Randolph County has been applying to the property for a number of years. The tourism and hospitality zoning, again, would apply to what we all recognize as more active operations of the zoo, or in close proximity to those functions. Got a number of images here. I'll just go through them really quickly to give you some context of all that is involved here. We look to city adopted plans and policies on this application, like we do to all applications that are filed. In this case, our land use plans don't go out this far, and so they did not contemplate specific recommendations for much of this area. The only place where you'll find any type of reference to land use is going to be the Zoo Society property that a number of years ago was brought into the city and has that tourism and hospitality zone. So this is a case where there's not a whole lot of guidance to follow. What we looked at is present land use, prior county zoning that's been in place, and then what is the proximity of the property to the zoo operation. So turn into specific goals or policies within the land use plan. So not picking up recommendations from the particular maps of our comprehensive plan, but there are goals, specific goals and policies that do offer some guidance to this application. Based on what we've filed, we believe there are a number of goals and policies that are generally supportive of the application. And as always, you'll find some that may be less favorable towards the application. As we look at the overall need for this zoning, the staff notes that the city has no choice but to apply zoning to all property within its corporate limits. Staff proposes that tourism and hospitality designation to those properties actively used by or supporting the zoo in its operation, and to, again, that land that previously was brought into the city. Some property located along thoroughfares or higher classification streets and land that is reasonably likely to be developed as part of public use facilities, how the code would define the zoo, is recommended to be placed into that tourism and hospitality district. The rest of the properties, as I said, are suggested to be placed in the lowest density residential district that the city has on the books. That we believe is our best effort to maintain essentially the status quo that has gone on for a number of years. It does give the zoo some opportunities for future development. It does reserve with the city council land use review down the road for the properties. So for those reasons, our recommendation is to adopt this as presented. This was heard by the planning board at its September meeting and does come to you with a favorable recommendation as well. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions of Mr. Nodal? Oh, wait. Any questions? All right. This is a public hearing, and we will hear from members of the audience at this point. So, sir, this is your opportunity to ask that question.
My name is Ed Cummins. I live on Zoo Park, Ross Harris. And I have a question how this will affect my continued living in Asheboro. I live next to the zoo property, and I'm concerned.
So your question was?
What is this going to affect the non-zoo property in that area?
in our opinion, it does not. It possibly affords you more protection than what you previously had, and that the property that's zoned R40 is single-family residential
So
property.
there's going to be no change.
I don't know how to respond to that, because I'm not in total control of the zoo itself. But it does take agricultural off the table.
So agriculture will be gone.
Well, it's not there now.
Okay.
Where did you say you live?
I live on Ross Harris.
Oh, Ross Harris, okay.
The only thing that is zoned for a zoo were the parcels that Trevor enumerated under the tourism and hospitality zone. The remainder is zoned R40.
Okay, so there'll be no change on that at this time.
At this time, as far as we know from the applicant.
Okay, that's all my only question. I thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Next?
Good evening. My name is Chris Scott. I am the in-house counsel for the Zoo Society. Mr. Mayor, council members, city staff, the Zoo Society fully supports the city zoning overlay on these annex parcels. The TH and R40 designations are appropriate for the land out there and will protect and maintain the character of the land. That's really about all I have to say about it. In support of it, I think it's the right thing to do, and as has been pointed out, you gotta put some zone on it. I mean, it's been annexed into the city, you don't have a choice now. And I think that the city's made a very good choice in the designations that they're gonna overlay onto these parcels. I would like to take one moment to just say, I know this has been a big job. It's been kind of a long journey of getting this all together, getting it before the legislature to get the annexation done. And now we made it all the way to this point. We're getting the zones put down. I would just like to take a moment to thank a few people. One of them might be in the room, I think. I know, I'd like to say thanks to Ben Morgan, though he's not here, because he was very helpful with getting the thing before the legislature. Mr. Nuttall, the work you've done here, I think, and Mr. Evans, I believe it is, who made the presentation for the planning board. Everyone, great work, very professional, and we appreciate that, thorough, professional work. That's all I have. Thank you.
You signed the book?
Oh, I did not. Thanks.
Please.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Are we sure? Okay. Council, we'll move from the public hearing to the deliberative phase of the process, and I will ask council what their thoughts are.
Mayor, based on the consistency statement provided by staff, I move we approve this as being consistent and approve the initial zoning as requested to the TH and R40 districts as enumerated in the several pins that are before us.
Have a motion by Mr. Bell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burks. Discussion. Okay. All in favor of approving this motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay. Item 6B is another hearing, which I will open. Case number RZ 24-7. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I have some severe acid reflux, and it's just making me cough. I apologize. I know that's annoying. You got any more? That helped.
The cough drop?
Oh.
Yeah, I've got more.
All right, this is.
Ready Joanne's desk, I'm not sure that was.
Oh, okay. This is an application to rezone property at 223 Brewer Street. from OA6 office apartment to R7.5 medium density residential.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. For the record, this item has been properly noticed and advertised, and now is the appropriate time for the public hearing. This is an application filed by the property owner, Arenaza Gallegos, for property Mayor previously described, where you're being asked to take the property from the OA6 office and apartment district to the city, to a medium-density residential district that the city offers, and that's the R7.5 district. There's one PIN involved in this request, just over 7/10 of an acre. There's presently a single-family dwelling on the property. Looking at the overview map, the parcels in the center of this map at the intersection of Brewer and Greensboro Street. We zoom in a little bit closer, you see it is the parcel identified by the letter A on this map. All other parcels with a letter are considered adjoining properties and would have received notification about this public hearing. You can see we have a good amount of OA6, that light blue in this area. There is some R7.5 zoning just immediately to the east and then further to the southeast. And then as you move west, you see the red commercial corridor of Fayetteville Street. This application would take the property from that blue and move it into that mustard yellow as part of an R7.5 block that would be there. Topographic and utilities map is provided. We do have utilities within both Brewer Street and Greensboro Street. You can see the property falls from west to east. This map and some other maps actually show two structures on the property. That second structure was taken down a number of years ago, and so there is just one single-family home that's presently on the property. And here's a oblique map from a couple of years ago to give you a closer view of the property and surrounding development pattern. This is a view from Brewer Street at the existing single-family home. We're now at the intersection of Greensboro and Brewer Street. This is a view looking north on Greensboro Street, and then we've turned around looking south. This is looking eastward down Brewer Street. Quickly going on the analysis, this property is in the city limits, and the city provides the full array of city services here. Brewer Street is a city-maintained collector-level street. Greensboro Street also is a city-maintained street. It is a higher classification street and is designated as a minor thoroughfare. The OA6 district is intended to produce moderate intensity office and residential development to serve adjacent residential areas. Land designated OA6 shall not be located with access to a minor thoroughfare as it presently is. Again, this is a request to take it to R7.5, which is a single and two-family medium-density residential district. One of the primary differences between OA6 and R7.5 is that the requested R7.5 district does not allow multi-family development. The current OA6 district would allow multi-family development on the property. So if this is approved, it will put it in a district that only allows single and two-family development in the future. We look to the land development plan for guidance here. We find that the proposed land use map identifies it for office and institutional use. That's likely because of the large amount of office and apartment zoning that's in the area. It's within the central small area plan, and being in the primary corporate limits is a primary growth area. Do find overall that there are a number of goals and policies that tend to support this application. Again, a couple that are not as supportive, but overall the staff's view is that this application is reasonable and promotes the public interest. The R7.5 district is and can be considered more restrictive than the current OA6 district. The central small area plan indicates that the preservation of existing residential neighborhoods is a key issue. We think approval of this application here this evening would accomplish that. And so this comes to you with a favorable recommendation from both staff and the planning board. The applicant is in attendance here this evening as well.
Any questions of Mr. Noble? Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, this is a public hearing, and I will entertain comments. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council on this request? Bobby, you have somebody who wants to speak? Okay. Anybody? Okay. We will move to the deliberative phase, and I will ask council for their thoughts on this request.
Mayor, based on the consistency statement provided by staff, I move we approve the consistency statement as being consistent with the proposed rezoning and approve the rezoning request as presented to R75.
I have a motion by Mr. Bell to approve the request. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Heath. Discussion? All in favor of approving this request, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, council, on item C, for a conflict matter, I would entertain a motion to recuse Mr. Moffitt from this discussion.
Mayor, I move we allow the recusal of Councilman, Mayor Pro Tem Moffitt for item C.
Have a motion by Mr. Bell. Do I have a second? Second. For the purposes of this discussion only. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Mr. Moffitt, you are excused.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Fenberg, Mr. Nuttall is gonna speak and introduce the case like he just has on the other two, and then you'll have your opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. This is RZ 24-18. I have distributed the conditional zoning site plans. Because this is a conditioned district and application, there is a corresponding site plan that identifies specific land development and the manner in which the land would be developed if the application is approved here this evening. For the record, this item has been properly advertised and noticed in accordance with state law. The applicant on this request is Walker B. Moffitt, representing Moffitt's Incorporated. This is property located on Old Humble Mill Road. It is a request to rezone the property from the present city R40 low-density residential zoning district to a conditional zoning R40 low-density residential district, specifically for a 21-lot manufactured home park that is depicted on the plans that I've just distributed. There's a single parcel involved in this application, just over 61 acres in size. Presently, this parcel ID number is undeveloped. And this application would seek approval to develop this undeveloped property. Overview map here on the screen identifies that pin that is a part of this application here tonight, outlined in blue. Any area on this map that has any type of color shading is area that's within the city's land use and zoning jurisdiction. Any area that does not have that or is generally white in color is not within our land use jurisdiction and is regulated by Randolph County. So you can see we have, this is an area of city jurisdiction surrounded by Randolph County, save for that property that the council annexed, I believe last year for a residential development. And that's that R15 conditional zoning that's to the south of this parcel. The only parcel that's involved with this application here this evening is that Tract A. All other parcels that have a letter here this evening are considered adjoining and would have received notification of tonight's hearing. I will note with this map, you can see the blue and white crosshatched area that is along the southern boundary of property. That is regulated 100-year floodplain, so there is a portion of regulated floodplain that does touch this property. If you look on the site plan that's been distributed, you'll note that the area of development, which is in the far southeastern portion of Parcel A, is outside of what is mapped and regulated floodplain. This is a topographic map, giving you an idea of the lay of the property out there, as well as the location of what are city-maintained utilities in the area. So there is a 15-inch sewer outfall that collects sanitary sewer and delivers it to the city lift station, which is that notched out area on the southern portion of the property. That station then pumps that to the city's primary collection system. So we do have city-maintained sewer in this area. There is not city-maintained water in this area. This is an aerial map. Anyone familiar with the manufactured home park out there? That is property that is to the east of this pin. Access to the proposed 21 lots that are requested here this evening would come through Ferrari Drive, so it would come through that adjacent development. But otherwise, that development is unchanged and not affected by the application here this evening. Describe the development as shown on the plans to be in the far southeastern portion of the property. On this oblique, we've attempted to identify the area that would be developed with those 21 homes. The majority of the property would remain undeveloped under this application. So it would be 21 homes requested on just over 60 acres, which is what's before you here this evening. This is a site plan. This is the same plan that was distributed to the council members. Again, those 21 homes are concentrated in the southeastern portion of that, of the portion of this undeveloped pin. For Ferrari Drive would be extended, provide access to those new homes. There would be, I believe, 2 smaller privately maintained roadways that would provide access to ensure all homes had access. This is zooming in a little bit, give you a little better idea of the private roadway extensions, as well as the locations, proposed locations of the private sanitary sewer that would collect to the city system. It's important to note that with this project, there are no publicly maintained utilities, infrastructure, roadway that are proposed. Everything would be privately maintained by the landowner. We would continue to maintain that sewer main that serves the current project and would serve this project. Got several photos here. This is looking into the undeveloped property at the end of Ferrari Drive. So where you are in the general vicinity of the area that would be developed with these 21 homes. This is a view on Old Humble Mill looking east. It's back towards the existing adjacent development, and then a view looking west. We've got some photos from within Richland Village. I want to emphasize this part of the property is not subject to the application, but we did want to just give you an idea of the adjacent development. Another view here of Richland Village. This is the existing bus stop, a recreational area, also a mail distribution center for the property. This serves the current, I believe there's 145 or 146 homes that are presently out there on the property. This would continue to provide those services to the new residences proposed. I've covered a lot of this. I will say that this property was annexed into the city in 2009. The present R40 zoning district is what was applied at that time that the property came into to the city limits. Both the existing development and this, at the time, which was I believe it was a single property, always applied R40 upon annexation. As I said, the property does utilize city-maintained sewer. There is a privately operated and maintained water system, as well as the roadways there. We do note, as with every conditional zoning district, that the code does allow an applicant to propose deviations from predetermined standards that the city has published. The two that we've identified, the first is proposed roadway surface width between 18 and 20 feet is what is indicated on the plan, with the Ferrari Drive extension being shown at 20 feet and those secondary private roadways being at 18 feet. Our typical requirement for new manufactured home park development is 22 feet. This request, in essence, asks to continue the development scheme and pattern that is out there. We do note that the fire code, at minimum, will look for a roadway to be all-weather surface for at least 20 feet in width throughout the project. So there is a deviation in terms of what we typically look for roadway width. There is also, typically speaking, a requirement for a buffer yard or a landscaping screen where a manufactured home park adjoins adjacent residentially used property. This is a situation where that buffer really would not accomplish much and is therefore not offered by the applicant. The adjacent residentially zoned property, there is no home in that area of the property. It's actually about 400 feet away from the area that the city code would typically look for some landscaping buffering to be provided. So that is the second deviation that's been identified. As we look to the city's land use plans for guidance, this is a conservation residential area which recommends low-intensity residential development. This is the case, you got 21 lots on about 60 acres. It is a primary growth area because it was annexed about 15 years ago. As we look to the specific goals and policies of the plan, we believe that there are 3 generally supportive of the application, 2 that are not as supportive. This is an application that, should the council see it appropriate to put into this district, we do propose conditions A through, that should be K at the end, to ensure continuing compliance with the city code, as well as compatibility with the area. I won't read all those. They have been published and are available in the report. As we wrap up and provide our recommendation, we believe this is a low-density nature development as proposed by the district. We think it fits the designation as a conservation residential area. The goal of a conservation residential area is to accommodate allowable densities while using less land. Approval of the district will promote the offering of varied and affordable housing options, in this case manufactured homes for residents. That is something the city's land use plan recognizes as a worthy objective, to have a variety of housing types for our current and new residents. And we believe that does accomplishes that. Further, the conditional zoning process, as you know, can help to ensure that new land development is compatible with existing and neighboring uses. There was a plan that's presented with this application. If in the future there are changes that are proposed to this development plan, or if there is additional homes, if there are additional homes that are proposed in the future, it triggers the need for a new application that comes back before you and through the public hearing process. So for those reasons, our recommendation is to approve it subject to the conditions that are contained within your report. I'll be happy to answer any questions, Mayor.
Questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Nuttall. this is the public hearing, and since Mr. Fenberg was eager to step up and talk, we'll go ahead and let you go first, sir.
Apologize for jumping the gun.
That's all right.
So, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, thank you for allowing me to speak. I am here just to ask that Moffitt's Incorporated application is delayed or denied until such time as he can prevent trespassing across his two neighbors, Humbles and Fenberg. He's never made any effort to do that. My property is there in the little triangle in D. So you can see it's pinched between the new massive project on the zoo side of the creek and Moffitt's large project that he's going to double there. Now, my family has had problems for decades with Mr. Moffitt's development. He's got a nicer crowd there lately, but they treat our property as if it were his park's YMCA. They ignore us, they don't ask permission, they tear down our signage, they tear up gardens, they cross fences. And all I would hope for or ask is that since we're bracing for massive increase approximately in the population of the valley, massive increase, I would ask that something be done. I'm hoping there's going to be a fence on the new big Beeson Farm development, Richland Creek development that's going to come up. And I would ask that Mr. Moffitt also fees his property. My little sister has had to buy a couple of big dogs. She has regular encounters with Mr. Moffitt's tenants in the woods who don't acknowledge that it's not public property that they're walking through. It's a dangerous situation and a liability. Moffitt's has always ignored this. They could rectify this situation, but they don't. I would just ask that he be a good neighbor, that Moffitt's be a good neighbor, and build a fence so that his tenants are at least discouraged. They cross Humble's property to cross ours to get into that creek. It's a nice spot, but it's mine, and I don't want all the kids in the neighborhood winding up in my backyard. Sheriff's deputy recently pointed out to my sister the well-worn path made by Mr. Moffitt's tenants across Humble's property and mine. It's feet from where she sleeps, my little sister. And as I said, Mr. Moffitt's tenants tear down our no trespassing signage and spread litter across the two adjoining property areas. Thank you for your consideration.
Any questions from Mr. Fenberg?
I was just trying to figure out where his property was at. Where did you say your property was at?
Yes, sir. If you look behind you.
D or C?
D.
D. Oh, okay, I got you. It is across the creek?
Yes, sir.
I got you. Okay.
We own property on both sides.
And the other property he was referring to is C, right?
That's where the home place is, and it's undeveloped on the other side. 11 acres on the other side.
So you're proposing he would like put a fence along the creek there? Is that what you're asking for?
Yes, sir. Well, at least along his, that's not his property, but between me and Humble Mill, that is right there at the recreation area, the basketball goal.
Yeah.
That's where all of his tenants file through.
The kids are gonna play in the creek. I mean, I thought about that.
Well, he needs to do something to delineate where his property ends and the next property begins. It doesn't seem like a lot to ask, especially such a significant problem. We expect there's gonna be a whole lot more of that kind of problem as a lot more folks move into the new complex.
I was going to inquire if you had made requests from the sheriff's office, but you did say that you had a deputy point out a pathway. How often do you have to call them?
Not too often. You don't call it that. I mean, they're kids.
Get to the creek.
It's just a growing problem.
This is a request. He said,
Like I said, my little tiny sister who spoke last time we were here has bought two enormous dogs. She keeps them chained up, but, you know, you have people walking through her backyard. I don't like it.
Where does she live at?
Old Humble Mill Road, 2600 Old Humble Mill Road.
Where's your sister live at on the map here?
On the seaside.
Seaside, I got you, okay.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in the room that would like to address the council on this request? Now it's your time to ask questions if you've got questions or make your feelings known. Anybody? Mr. Gallimore, you stand up here and tell us what you need to tell us.
All right.
And I promise I will not be ugly to you tonight.
David, you've never been ugly to me, just crotchety. How's that? Did you like that better? Mr. Mayor, council members, thanks for this opportunity tonight to make some presentations here. There are a few things in your packet I would like to make sure you're taking a look at. One is a copy of the rules and regulations that this community has in place for all the property owners. And I'd like to make a point now. These are all property owners. The residents of all of these mobile homes own their own mobile homes. They're only leasing the space they sit on. So they are property owners. And I'll take a sidebar there for just a minute and say that affordable housing in Randolph County is getting tighter and tighter. We talked about that in some of the public comments tonight, and some of the things have been discussed. And affordable housing, and the key is affordable. Some of the prices have gotten pretty expensive. And home ownership with interest rates, it's what we do for a living, and it's hard to come up with affordable housing. And I think that's what prompted this increase, and I'll call it an increase to an already existing community. It's just the need for and the demand for is here. A few things I'd like to comment on within the restrictions. I think you would agree on a few of these, it exceeds the city regulation. One, no outside alcohol can be consumed in the city. If you're in your own yard, you certainly can consume alcohol, but not in this community. You have to be inside. It's held to one pet, I think, which I don't know how he keeps that one straight, and 10 pounds. I guess they keep up with the weight of the dogs if they get past 10 pounds. But if you'll note, I don't think the city can restrict dangerous dogs like Rottweilers, pit bulls, and those sorts of dogs. But in this case, in this community, they are restricted, and that's his right to do so. So I think it has an element of safety, which we're all concerned about. A few other things I'd like to mention is that it has full street lighting, and that's done by Randolph Electrical Corporation, and they engineer and put those lights in at the landlord's expense. And there's a water system there that is, excuse me, permitted for 205 connections. So and that is monitored monthly by the state, I might add. So it has its own water system and right there and available. Mr. Walker's been in the paving and the road business for years, so internally the roads in this look really good. Have all the turning lanes for the installation of these homes as they come in. Also, he's very, very aware of having to move them and fire protection and those sorts of things, so I think you'll see that's all in good shape. As far as the expansion, and I'm going to call it expansion because it's really what it is, Ferrari Drive just extends into this small 7-acre area out of 61 acres, I might add. So it's a small portion of a 61-acre site. But as it extends in, there's a lot of extra parking. If you'll note in some of your photographs, there's a recreational area. All the mail is internal, so the postman doesn't have to be out at the street with mailboxes. And we've all seen those throughout the county where it's just these series of 25 mailboxes in a row. We don't have that scenario. Also, and I wanted to read this, I thought it was pretty interesting. Each year, they go ahead and reach out to the county to find out what the school bus system is going to be like, so the residents will know when bus traffic comes in and when the students will be picked up and so forth. And I thought it was pretty interesting when they reached out, and this was a response by Jamie Smith, who's the Assistant Transportation Director of the Randolph County School System. I want to thank you again for all the work you have done to keep our students safe. Thanks, Jamie Smith. So safety, I know, is very important to this community and to this council, and even this new addition, the students will be picked up and dropped off internally should they choose to ride the buses. So I want to comment on that particular part here tonight. There is a canteen, a small store on site for items that people might need. There is an office that has regularly posted hours, so they're there and available. Should someone need to speak to management, then that's there and available for them on regularly scheduled hours. To me, everybody has their own opinion. I would rate this community as one of the higher standard communities that I see in this type of onset village, if you will. Let's just call it the village it is. But I'm available for questions. The property owner is certainly present, as you well know. If you have some additional questions or concerns, I'd like to field them now or reserve some time later if necessary.
The suggested conditions are amenable to the applicant.
Yes, I forgot to mention that. All the conditions cited by the planning board, planning board is certainly in agreement with the property owner.
Has your client here had any discussion about how to address the ingress, egress across the Benberg property?
Well, I just heard of that tonight. I didn't realize that was an issue. I will say there may be a solution to that. When you and I were that age, they couldn't have kept us out with a gun, David, if there's a creek close by. But I don't know what would do that. So, I mean, it's certainly possible that some agreement could be made on that. Clark's grinning, you couldn't keep him out either. Not if Blake was with him.
Unauthorized access to the creek is definitely a liability for the Benbergs. And I would probably feel the same way with people across.
Well, it might actually help him. One of the things we talked about, I asked him how the neighbor scenario went. He thought pretty well. We didn't have anyone in opposition at the planning board. He said, the biggest problem he had was keeping the neighbor's dogs away from his trash cans or the trash dumpsters. There are no cans in this community, by the way. Everything has to go to the dumpster. It can't be any cans outside to contain any kind of trash or rubbish and that sort of thing.
I gotta say, I'm impressed with the rules.
I knew you would be. So your question is about?
Keeping people off Benberg property.
He's recused but not speechless.
It appears to me, just from looking at it, that the issue is not the property that we're talking about, but apparently the issue is the existing.
I was going to make that comment.
It's not what we're dealing with, it's the other property, so.
I would say with a number of residents here, and I think it's third generation, I think I'm right, maybe fourth generation that the Moffitt family's owned this property. I remember it from years ago, and I've seen it continually improve. They've spent money out there to do that. I mean, I can't speak about fencing. You can't fence the world, but maybe that would be a solution. If this were not approved, Clark, I think you make an interesting point. The issue's still in place with what's already there.
Well, let's talk about what's there a little bit.
All right.
Are you aware, do you have any idea how many police?
I am, and I imagine you are. You want to give us numbers?
Yeah, it's 233 calls in the last 23 months down there.
So.
And are you aware when they send one, they have to send two?
Yeah, I'm glad you got that because I do my homework. And
I figured you did.
And you do too. So in 2023, there were 124 calls. 2024 through today, 83 calls. Let's break that down a bit, though. Go back to the rules. I think you'll find that the ownership of this park is keenly aware of the rules, and there are many calls that occur. For instance, you can't be dogs outside, you can't chain one outside. There's a number of things you can't do. I think that there's a certain responsibility that the ownership of this park feels, particularly due to their position in this city, that those things need to be addressed. They try to do it up front. If people don't cooperate, they're going to call to make compliance be done. Sometimes it's easier for the authorities to come up. Not saying that's all of it, that's some of it.
Well, I've done some research. I don't know why we even annexed this, simply because it's 5 miles out of the city. And it takes 2 policemen, the guy on the east side, and it usually takes a second one to go down there, which you're talking about safety. That takes them out of another part of the city, you know. Also, you know, and there's expenses related. We pay east side $8,000 a year to cover for fire every year.
I would imagine, I don't know,
146 trailers.
how many, yeah, 126, I guess.
No,
they're all paying-
146.
They're all paying city tax, all those trailers?
Yeah, they're to the tune of, last year's tax was 25,000. That's not counting the trailers, the 3 parcels that are down there, was the income from tax.
Well,
And if you tax them the same going forward, you're talking about $28,000, 621. Now, I was told when this was annexed in 2009, it was a net gain. But I can tell you with the amount of calls we've got going, with additional calls, you're talking about another 14, possibly 14 calls. It's not gonna be a net gain. We're gonna be paying money for that expansion. We're not gonna recoup or cover our expenses related to that.
I've not looked at this, but I wonder how that compares with, I live in North Asheboro, how that compares with the number of police calls that go to the apartments near my house.
Well, they're in contiguous city limits. It doesn't take 2 to answer a call there. I'm sure they're.
I rarely see less than 2.
Well, and I'm sure, and that's fine, but they're in the
I think
city
that's a
limits.
procedure.
They're not 5 miles out of town. They also have had radio issues down there. They haven't been able to talk. Now, I think they've got that worked out. But I was told for the longest time, they could not communicate back to the city, or in town. And, you know, and sometimes they need it. I mean, they said they will send one if a larceny happened 2 days ago or something. But if there's a domestic dispute or something like that, they have to have 2. And like I said, the way the patrol's set up, that pulls the guy on the east side and somebody either north or south out there, and leaves an area of town not covered. And we got 2 people 5 miles out of town. And I just, you know, I just don't think it's in the best interest of the city financially, and I just don't think it's supported. And then, you know, especially when it's gonna cost us even more. We're not gonna have tax dollar revenue to cover it.
Well, I spoke with Mrs. Wilson at the Asheboro PD about the calls. I wanted to be up to speed on that. And she said, and I asked her point blank, have there been any felonies, any narcotics, any of those sorts of things? And quote, unquote, not to her knowledge. It's been somebody backed into somebody's car.
I agree.
A dog.
Just talking about pulling resources out.
Yeah.
And I can put a dollar amount on a trip, but if you can just, a reasonable amount, puts it very expensive. It's an expensive cost to the city to do that.
Yeah.
And that's just my position.
Well, I will say this as a realtor, and I'll finish with that note. Housing's short. They've got to live somewhere. Certainly don't want them in the homeless camps. We've already heard about that today. And if you can make housing affordable and give people opportunities to have pride of home ownership, you've done a lot.
At the expense of safety? You saying at the expense of safety to the rest of the citizens in Asheboro?
At the expense of, you're talking about?
Safety for the rest of the citizens when they pull people, double people down there, double patrols down there. You're pulling them off other areas in town. And should the taxpayer, you know, if we take in 28,000 and it's costing us 35 with patrols and, you know, the 8,000 to east side and everything like that, should the taxpayer fund the difference?
You know, I guess I'm looking at the fact we just approved a $100 million project down there within chip shot of
Yeah,
this
and that
property
has
and
to
a fire
start,
station.
that's not existing, and that's gonna have to be addressed. But right now, we don't have the resources or the setup to patrol.
So I will close in this. For the nature of this community and the reputation it has, the codes that you see, the restrictions in place, the fine job that I've seen done, and I'd go so far as to call this community the gold standard of what I see. I see some really sad stuff. Exempting what you say about police protection, I get it. Exempting that, you can't find a better request than this in Asheboro for affordable housing and for giving opportunities to grow our city population. As we grow our population, I think we qualify for more grants, more dollars, and other things, and we're looking for ways to grow. One small way to do it, I recommend we approve it, but it's up to you guys. I'm available for any follow-up questions. My client has said that he'd be willing to put a boundary fence along the Finberg property. Mr. Finberg. Thank you.
Anybody else who wants to speak? Your point is well taken. What's not figured in there is the time involved for those two officers.
And the
Could
other,
be,
and the other.
could be 10 minutes, could be
2 hours, 3 hours.
an hour or two.
Well, you know, now, we're annexing so far outside the city. I mean, we've got the zoo now, so I guess we got officers going down there. So that's kind of the same area there. So, I mean, the way the laws, annexation laws are written, you know, that's the only way we can annex is when people ask to come into the city. And so we're taking people, thinking city way outside the city, not get, people, areas that right adjoined to the city. We need to, that's what we need to annex, but we can't do that. So we went this route, we're gonna annex way outside the city. I mean, it's down there now. I mean, if we get that other large development down there, then obviously they'll need police protection, so it's gonna be all together. So I see at this point in time, I mean, we've already crossed the Rubicon on all that, so.
That is our only direction to really grow the city.
Now, the other area, I would say, counter that by saying the other area's not in there yet, because we will have to do something different when it comes. But I'm just saying, as it stands right now, it's not a net gain for the taxpayer. Plus, you can't exempt the safety issue. And he said, you know, I understand what he's saying, but you can't exempt the safety issue. If you exempt that, then that's excluding or turning your back on the rest of the town. I mean, that 5 miles out of town makes a difference right now.
Well, it's 5 miles out of, well, it's not out of town because it is in town, because
It
it is
is in
part of the
town,
city limits.
but it's
But as
5
we
miles.
look 20 years down the road, and probably even less than that, as this county's going to grow by 100,000 people, this is an area, as the mayor just said, where we're going to develop. And we need to look down the road, and this will be contiguous at some point. It's going to happen. I mean, I don't see any way around that, because that's the only area, or one of the few areas in which we can grow our city. So it's
Well,
going to happen.
I don't doubt, I'm talking about the immediate need in the next year or two. It will grow, we'll probably be dead and gone when it's contiguous down there.
Maybe.
But, I mean, we're asked to rule on this one thing, on this one piece of property right now.
Yeah.
And right now, it's costing us. And, you know, for more, I mean, I just, I don't, like I said, I wasn't part of the original. I didn't even realize it until I got on council that something like that, non-contiguous that far out. And then that was my concern, and that's why I proceeded, because, you know, we're stretched thin as it is with folks. And I just, I don't think it's I think we can't turn our back on the safety part of it, aspect. Or the dollars
I don't think
amounts
we
it's
are.
costing. Huh?
I don't think we are. turning
Well,
our back
they
on
said,
safety.
his point was exempt to safety. Everything else is great.
Well, I don't know that there's been any showing or any indication that just because 2 officers go out there for a call, that the city is not being served by the remaining persons. I mean, there's no indication that somebody's not getting their call answered because an officer is responding elsewhere. I don't know how many we have on shift.
Well,
at any
yeah,
given
all you
time,
need is
but
one time.
probably, if I had to guess, how many do we have on shift at any given time?
I mean, obviously it depends on night shift, not as many as day shift, of course, because specialized units, on the patrol team, they have usually, 9, but people out on vacation, it fluctuates like
But
anything.
you generally have 8?
Yeah, you
8
generally have something like that, yeah.
And this is in the city south zone, the city police's south zone, right?
The whole town.
South of town. All-
Yeah, that
All
would-
south of 64,
Yeah, that'd be the south zone, yes.
and we have one officer that patrols that area, I mean, assigned that area, basically.
It depends, again, it depends on personnel. Sometimes they just actually break it up into, by teams, like in north, south, east, west, or you go put 2 in the south. If you don't have enough, yeah, you put 1 somewhere on the least. But you got north too, which is, vast, and, you got a lot going on there, so sometimes there's 1 up there. But, yeah, I don't know.
When you say that we have roughly 8 on patrol at any given time like that, does that include the supervisor, shift supervisor, or the
No,
team
not-
supervisor?
Yeah, not necessarily. And again, during the daytime, we're in the best shape because we have a traffic unit, we have vice narcotics sometimes, the safety. We have a lot more officers during the daytime up to about 6 o'clock, less when, most calls come in. So it just depends, again, depends on call volume, and when we have still most calls, we try to put those personnel to match those calls. And then part of this issue, it is out there a little piece, it is. But part of this is about the supervisors paying attention to what their officers are doing. Like, we did have a hot call one night, I was filling in on patrol as captain, lieutenant sergeant were out, and there was a hot call down there. It was, and one of the officers was getting into something, so she called for emergency assistance. The issue with that was, we had all officers go all the way out, and I had actually told them, hey, few of you stay in town, stay in your zone, we've got plenty to go out there. So that's on us, to supervise, to make good decisions, don't let all your officers who need to go out of that zone, stay in town, and just, spread it out evenly. It's doable.
But we also send officers out to Tot Hill too, that's about how far out, 5 miles too, right?
Yeah, it's probably equivalent. We didn't pull those calls. I don't think we got there much, to be
Yeah,
honest
that's
with
why you wouldn't have as many calls out there.
Right.
Mayor, based on the consistency statement provided by staff and the recommendation of staff, I move we approve the conditional zoning subject to the conditions enumerated and amenable to the applicant.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear all of that.
I move we approve the consistency statement and the rezoning together with the recommended conditions.
Oh, you good with that?
And that's, Mr. Bell, that's including the fence that was not written in. That he
I don't know.
Can't put that in now, you gotta do that. We gotta vote on.
He volunteered to do the fence, that's not really a condition.
Okay.
I will affirm that my clients are willing to put the fence up. If you want to make it a part of the condition, it's fine.
All right. Well, we'll add the added condition of,
Is that on the, may I ask, is that on the property? That, I was heard a little difference
Actually,
between
yeah.
the property that's under review right now versus where you're talking about is, I just want to make sure I'm clear on what we're talking, for the board's consideration.
I beg the question, I mean, that's my question. It seemed that the problem was not on the property that.
It's not contiguous?
No.
But it is contiguous, but it's not part of this rezoning request.
Just trying to see what's before the council.
His property does not adjoin the other parcel.
Right.
His doesn't, but the,
It does not adjoin, it adjoins parcel A, but not parcel B. And that's the existing though.
yeah. C adjoins A. I mean B.
C and A are.
C adjoins B. D adjoins A.
All right, we have a motion,
I'll second.
and we have a second from Mr. Burks. Now, discussion.
And just, Mr. Mayor, with your permission, just for clarity, the way the clerk has it now, you correct me if I'm wrong, the way the clerk has it now, the motion was to approve, it's a two-part motion, approve the consistency statement. Based on the consistency statement, talking about reasonableness and safety in the comprehensive development plan, and to approve that and to approve the requested amended district with the conditions that were suggested. At this time, the motion that was made and seconded, as interpreted with the clerk, does not include any change in the conditions at this point. And that's what is in front of you at this time.
Fence is more of a gentleman's agreement between the two property owners. That's my thinking is that.
Because the piece of property we're looking at right now is,
Sure.
yeah.
That's just a gentleman's agreement.
I just leave,
Who's gonna enforce that, me?
It's a gentleman's agreement, you know.
What is that fence gonna be?
if you're amenable to do it, I'll amend my motion, Mayor, subject to
It's gotta be his
a
property.
friendly amendment with our second, that I'll make a condition.
And if you don't mind, if we could just have a motion to amend, since we've got a motion and a second, we would technically need to
Do I have a
amend.
motion to amend the
I will amend,
original motion?
Correct.
I will make a motion to amend the original motion to add the condition of a fence along the property line of Lot A.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burks. All right.
I'm sorry, it's just Lot A, it's not gonna continue to
Lot B is not before us.
Yes, I understand.
We can't enforce a condition on a separate piece of property.
I see.
We're gonna vote on what's before us.
I understand, it's just that the tenants are all coming through the recreation area, which seems to be existing.
We're gonna vote on the amended motion first.
The motion to amend would be the order of the vote at this
Hold on.
point.
A motion on the table to amend the original motion.
Correct.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Wait, what'd you just vote on?
The amendment,
The amendment?
Voting
Just
on
the amendment,
Just the amendment?
just the amendment.
Okay, yeah,
motion to amend the first.
okay. All right, we can amend the first motion, yeah.
So,
Ah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So is Mr. Moffett obligated only to, for the border fence on the new portion, the new annex portion, and not on the?
that is the only thing before us.
That's the only thing we have, yeah.
We can't go back and change his original.
Mr. Moffett, you gonna close off the area where kids come through all the time now, to the basketball court? That's the way the problem is.
That's a discussion for another venue and another location, that's my opinion.
All right. So, the motion to amend passed.
Correct. And it's being recorded as a unanimous approval.
Right.
Is that correct?
He voted for that.
All right. Okay, now, the original motion.
As amended, I think would be properly before you.
That is correct.
And Mr. Burks is the second on that. Discussion.
No more than what I've already said. I'm concerned about the negative, it'll be a negative. It'll be a loss dollar-wise, and also concerned about safety. And not only safety there, but safety in pulling resources that far out. And I just don't think it's in the best interest of the city to do that. So that's, I've had my say, I'm done.
Anybody else? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the request with the accepted conditions, including the fence.
Correct. Correct.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No?
We have Let the record show we have one opposing vote. So motion carries. Okay, item 7, Mr. Patton, Assistant City Engineer, Mr. Patton. 7A is request for authorization seeking an agreement with North Carolina DOT.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. So the city's been in talks with the DOT relating to sidewalks along 64 between on East Dixie Drive from Browers Chapel / Dublin Road to Executive Way Center Point Plaza. The total length of the sidewalk discussed is 2,000 feet approximately. The project was submitted by the city to the State Traffic Improvement Program, with pedestrian priority within our Highway Division to allocate funding. The next step for us is to request an agreement between the city and the DOT for funding and management of the project. There is $2.042 million available for federal funding, and they're requesting a match of $510,500 from the city. If the council authorizes seeking the agreement, we would expect it to be back for execution by January 2025. The city has been informed that this funding from the feds would include engineering, right-of-way acquisition, utility relocation, and construction of the project. The city would locally manage and oversee the project, but would not design or construct with our personnel. This evening, the staff requests authorization to enter interlocal agreement with NCDOT. Take any.
So what you're saying, Spencer, is that NCDOT will design and let the contract. We'll be the field, we'll check it per the plans, but we won't design it, nor will we do the bid documents. Is that correct?
A lot of the interlocal agreements we do, they essentially handle everything. They just want our input if we have specific requests for changes to the design, but as far as design and allocate, like actual implementing the project, that would be handled by DOT. Yes, sir.
And the 510,000 is our match?
Correct. That's,
okay.
So the federal funding is up to $2.2 million. They were requesting if the project were to go through, our match would be $510,000.
We'll pay a fifth of it.
Yes.
It's still pending, are the federal, are those funds allocated to us? Is that, pretty much a guarantee kind of thing?
Yes, that funding in this project is within the 2024, 20 to 2033 STIP.
Okay.
And so the project's identified, the funding, based on the last estimates, is in the plan. So the next step would be this agreement. This process kind of evolves at the state level. It is possible, we will definitely not do the design work on the project. We may have a role in bidding the project and managing the contractor, but we will not design, we would not build, and it is an 80-20 cost share that the federal DOT has for a pedestrian project. This is unlike other projects that have pedestrian elements but are primarily highway projects. This is only a pedestrian sidewalk project, and the formula is 80-20. And to increase the DOT's capacity to manage projects, they look for more local administration when it comes to a sidewalk project like this. But the funding is there, and we just, to move forward, we just need to proceed with the agreement.
So then, where would our 510,000 come from? Debbie, I don't know if you want to address that, or?
Yeah, it would be up to the city to provide those matching dollars.
What kind of timeframe are we on?
I would suspect it would be in the next fiscal year that we would probably have to make a commitment to that.
25?
Yes, yeah.
I don't really understand that. I mean, from Dublin Road to Center Point Plaza. So what, they just gonna make a sidewalk for that big gully right there that goes down to, I mean,
It will, it's on both sides, yeah, both sides of the road, and they will have to, the project will have to contend with that drainage, right in front of the Walmart Shopping Center. But the intent of the project is to have a continuous connection from the hotels, on both sides of the road, to get a pedestrian into, Center Point Plaza.
Have business owners requested this?
No, this was submitted as a part of the, public input process, for the development of the STIP. It was submitted by the city.
I know there've been several people that have tried to cross and gotten hit.
Yeah.
Is there anything we do to increase safety of the pedestrians?
Putting the sidewalk right there at that intersection.
There's that.
That doesn't even make any sense. Me.
It is something that, this project is, with identified, in our transportation plan, sidewalks on East Dixie Drive, West Dixie Drive are something that our adopted plans, advocate. And so, we attempt to implement that through, this type of process.
And it's both sides of 64.
Yes.
You gotta have the light, it's all the light.
Well, I can see the south side, I believe they can work it all right.
Yeah,
But, I mean, you're gonna run a sidewalk to that big culvert right down there and where the intersection comes in. So what is people gonna do, cross there they're gonna make a way to cross at the stoplight? They're going in.
Guardrail through there.
Yes, a big old guardrail.
Because the slope, I can't tell you how many thousand cubic yards of dirt it would take to get enough room to put a sidewalk from the driveway for the old, used to be the ammo store.
Well, it would go, it's gonna go from Executive Way west. It's not gonna go any further east on the north side there. And so it's gonna be on the
So
north.
it's not going,
No,
I misread this. It's north and sides of the road from Center Point Plaza, which is the entrance to the Walmart. Back up
To
the
Browers
stoplight,
Chapel.
Browers Chapel in Dublin.
There'll be a crossing, and then it'll go from Dublin to Executive Way.
Okay, okay.
Be like a J.
Okay, I got you. That didn't sound.
Okay, so it'll stop there by Zaxby's.
Okay.
Correct, yes, sir. The gully I was thinking of was the one on the Center Point,
Okay.
side.
You literally can't, well, the pumps, the reason the shoulder's so steep now is because of the pump station.
Correct.
Pump station's at the lowest point where they all.
And I guess the Lucas is probably still on that property. They piled all that dirt up there and then there wasn't no place to put it because of the pump station.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
Honestly, there would, for sidewalks to then go from that point eastward, it would take a highway project and probably some development within that property that makes that a four-way intersection, right?
You're gonna have to
Massive
raise the
grading,
pump
yeah.
station 40 feet.
Yeah, right.
And
That's
Mr.
why that.
Trogdon's notes, things are expensive.
Yeah. But just for the record,
That will be horrendous.
that issue is outside of the, outside of this project.
We don't know whether they might make that stoplight at Dublin and Brewer there, so people could cross there. I mean, they really, I see people all the time crossing there in the middle of the highway.
Oh, yeah.
But we don't know if that would include this or not.
Where's that?
Well, if there's sidewalks on both sides of the street, the DOT policy would look for pedestrian infrastructure to get you, across 64
Okay.
to both sides.
Okay, that would be great, yeah.
And Trevor, you said this would be in next year's budget.
Right, we still need to get the agreement from DOT executed. We would then need to, work with them on bid documents, to let the construction. Just from my experience, that means we're into the next fiscal year by the time we're having to, commit to the funding. But we don't want to commit to the agreement unless we know that there's,
Well, 510,000 is
interest.
total cost.
is the city's total cost.
The city's total cost.
Yes, sir. It's a $2.5 million project.
Yeah, and that's what I'm struggling with, is all the other things that we have to do.
A lot of money.
I'm just not understanding why this would be a high priority for us to spend that amount of money on a project like, that's what I'm struggling with.
And that's the will of the council. If that is no longer a priority, then we will not request the agreement and we will not commit those funds. And those STIP funds will go to a different project.
If
Not an Asheboro project, but a different project.
No, well,
Or-
unless we could get something re-rated on the phone book.
Sure.
If the state were gonna spend $2 million to our 500,000,
Still,
where's Clarice?
They're trying to get the
I think there's
I-
higher priorities of
I understand, I understand.
things than that.
Yes, somebody's mentioned Salisbury Street. That has been a project we've also submitted and actually rejected funding for because this was probably 10 years ago, but because of the cost of East Salisbury Street sidewalk project, we did not move forward with that after we saw the city's commitment. This is to just let you know that that funding is out there, should the council want to move forward with seeing
That's
the
almost
project.
like they wanna say we offered you $2 million, you know, and we're supposed to feel
It's
good.
incredibly
about it. The
expensive,
cost
yeah.
of it is so extreme.
That's not a lot
But
of sidewalk.
Salisbury Street itself is under contract to be.
I mean, I think a good part of that's probably traffic, traffic controls that will have to be,
And you gotta go over Chili's.
there's gonna be,
Put in that bank, it's gonna make life miserable.
the loops in the intersection there at,
Absolutely.
The reason we're talking about sidewalks out there is because for years, that's where our hotels are and our restaurants. We have a lot of pedestrian, visitors. Visitors are not. A lot of people walk up both sides of 64 along there, and they might wanna cross to go to IHOP. They might, wanna be over, or go to, Walmart or whatever, and it's
That's a long walk.
being a major highway, we've always felt like there was a good reason to have sidewalks out there. However, have we started with our sidewalk, requirement program? When I got on council 20 years ago, there'd be sidewalks all up and down 64. Because our policy at that point was if you build a building, you build a sidewalk. And that hole you're talking about, planning board said, oh, that's a big hole, you don't have to build a sidewalk there. And Chili's would have built the sidewalk. They didn't want to, but our policy required that. And Hampton has a sidewalk right in front of it that people say to me all the time, oh, the sidewalks don't go anywhere. Well, Hampton built a sidewalk after, Kickback Jack, or Rockola built their sidewalk, because owners of Hampton at the time walked out there and liked the looks of it, so they went back after the fact and built a sidewalk.
You jogged my memory on something there, and you're talking about the Chili's, cause that culvert's there, and we extended that culvert, and you're right. If they're not out of right of way, they're almost out of right of way when they put in that turning lane and the culvert there. I'm not sure where they'll put a sidewalk from the Mattress Store down to the Center Point Plaza.
well, the right of way is a part of the project also.
Yeah, so that,
Glen Cove Viaduct.
yeah.
Hang it from there.
That, well, they may have to, because that's the pump station's on the other side, but
Didn't the DOT
you
agree,
don't have enough slope there now.
didn't the DOT agree to put
That's where
another
your $2 million
turn lane into
is, it's
Walmart?
starting to make sense right now.
Two lanes, didn't DOT agree to put another turn lane into Walmart several years ago? To make a two-lane, well, I mean, it's like people on that one lane.
I don't
all the way back
remember
and
that,
forth.
I don't know.
What's there is what was built originally.
I thought they agreed to put another turn lane into Walmart there.
If you were gonna develop some property out there, they're
Then they
gonna
were
argue to.
requesting other.
Now,
issues.
the Murphy Oil was new. Or the Verizon and all this, that's new.
And had to be right in and right out.
That was a Texas T
No
also.
left.
That was
My
that was asymmetrical widening of 64 when they developed
Hence,
Walmart
the
Park.
Cracker Barrel.
The one thing I'll say, Mayor, is that not taking this state highway funding doesn't preclude the city from investigating it separately as a standalone city-initiated project. It just means that the city will not be eligible to receive the state funds towards construction. So at some point in the future, if the city wanted to independently design and do it in more bite-sized pieces to close those gaps in the sidewalks. And this, we could elect to do that. We just wouldn't, we wouldn't receive state funding through this process to do so.
You know, looking at this, the mattress factory's got sidewalk like David was talking about.
Yep.
And so's the hotels, and so's Kickback Jacks, and I
And
stand
those were all
corrected.
built by the
There
developers.
probably is a wide enough place to extend that sidewalk there.
All-
In front of Chili's, get down there, that might not require that giant amount of grading, which gets me back to, what cost $2.5 million?
That is the DOT project cost that they ran through their formula looking at other similar project costs.
That's,
Probably on a
I'm
US
always-
highway.
Are we saying that somebody walks out of the hotel, I'm just asking
Mm.
because the way it's gonna walk up to the light, up at Sheets, cross the street, walk all the way back down to Chili's? You know, most people are
That's
gonna
what
cross.
they're saying.
Yeah, but most people are gonna, I've seen them cross. I
Right.
mean, you know.
I don't know that it says somebody will actually do that, but it will construct this segment on both sides.
Right.
Whether somebody walks out of the hotel and actually does that, this project would take care of that segment, and in the future, we would work towards other segments for.
Most
I
of
was just
the
saying,
people,
that's what it looks like to me. They're going to
Push
get.
button crosswalk,
Joe,
that'll cost $75,000.
most of the people that walk
That's a
up
far
there
cry
and
put
cross
in
the
me.
street are going to Golden Corral.
Yeah, yeah.
Or IHOP.
Right.
They're not going, and the people that have been hit out there are generally, now I may be mistaken, but most of those people that have been hit crossing the road in the middle of the, are going to the homeless camp down there behind Lowe's.
Most of them that I've seen up there utilizing this have their own
They were
personal
coming
property.
from the homeless camp.
Right,
To go
exactly.
to kickbacks.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
You know, we want sidewalks, but 510 for that little bit of sidewalk, it sounds like an awful lot of money.
I think we save it for.
And it's
So
just
two
low
million,
priority.
For the sidewalk project. And that might be I don't really wanna do it, here's my price quote. I mean, I just don't see $2 million in that 2,000 feet of sidewalk. Of course, I don't build sidewalk.
I do, and I don't.
That number is not the city's number, Mr. Mayor.
We're saying 2,000.
Yeah, well, that's
Yes, sir.
my point.
Yeah, no,
But
it's too.
there very well may be utility, we could be talking about utility relocations that have to happen as a part of that.
I'd rather take that 500 and build something useful.
Exactly.
More sidewalks or pave some streets.
Exactly.
Just take the 500,000 and fix Park Street and areas that people are utilizing around here downtown and get the grant to be more useful than this.
Mayor, in the absence of authorization, we will not request an interlocal agreement, and the state will reprogram that funding. That's what we'll report, and that's why we wanted to share it with you for the final decision.
It's screwy, it won't stay in the area necessarily based on the scoring process. But that's-
Just a scoring process.
Next Wednesday at 10 a.m., we will complain.
Get some money for Salisbury Street.
That's when the meeting is, the next meeting.
All right, is there anybody on council that wants to pursue this?
No.
I think it's a consensus not to.
Use a 510 on something else.
That's a lot of money we could put somewhere else. Sorry, Spencer. Don't kill the messenger, right? All right, 7B, authorization for city manager John Ogburn to sign and submit financial responsibility owner for sedimentation pollution control for the David and Pauline Gerald Center City Garden.
Thank you, Mayor. In August, we finally received the approval from Army Corps' review after waiting 11 months. This is there was federal jurisdiction on the property. We had been withholding applying for the final regulatory approvals from the state until we received this determination. Now that the Corps is in concerns, the staff is requesting authorization for the city manager to submit project plans and formal requests for land disturbance approval. Staff recommends when proceeding in order for the city to be in position to move forward with a Gerald Garden should we receive notification that the grant funding has been awarded.
Mayor, we do have informal talks with the Parks and Record Trust Fund and the folks that do the LWCF grant, and we do have a strong application. So this just allows me to sign the documents. You have to give me permission, though.
And when will we know if we're, like, what's the time frame?
I would think, they'd say time frame.
We've been asking for several months on a
Yeah.
time frame, and it's just one of those things that nobody can commit to when we'll know of a fund. We know that this land disturbance approval has to happen.
Right.
It doesn't, approving this doesn't do anything other than allow us to submit to have that permit in hand. Should the funding become available, then we're that much closer to being able to move
Got
forward.
it.
Sound like no real obligation here.
Yes, sir.
Do I have a motion to approve this, authorization for the manager?
So move.
Have a motion by Ms. Heath. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Bell. Discussion. All I can say is if you expect John to sign it, we better get it done. He's not gonna be here long.
Next week, Mayor.
We need to, we need to be pushing the people with the grant money to let us know something.
Well, once we execute this, we're gonna ring them up and say everything's done. If you're waiting on us, don't wait on us anymore.
Okay, motion, do I have, any other discussion? Motion to approve the authorization for Mr. Ogburn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Patton, you wanna tell us what the current situation with the, children's playground at the Sportsplex is?
Do my best. As seen, you've probably seen and heard, the playground at Cone Health Sioux City Sportsplex is closed for the time being. This was due to something that was brought to engineering department's attention by our recreation staff, that there was a emerging safety issue on the playground from what our observation in our department, and we called our soil contracted soil engineer that we use for the Sportsplex to investigate as well. It seems that the soil underneath the play surface, and about, depending on which part of the play surface, there's about 18 to 24 inches of stone. The soil is migrating out through the retaining wall. From our soil engineer's observations from in the field, he would, his opinion was that the stone that the surface installer put was holding the water for too long, and then it was seeping off the soil underneath the stone. This was causing, around our catch basin in the center of the playground, was causing it to raise, so there was a large hump, and some of the climbing posts started to lean over. So we contacted the playground company, and we had a discussion with them, met out there with them. We made a temporary fix where we removed a section of rubber around the catch basin, was able to take out the stone was placed, put in wash stone, and that was a temporary fix just to kind of slow down the process, let more water come through the catch basin as it was designed to. The playground company decided that they would like to have a third-party engineer firm review it as well. So in the meantime, we were waiting on their report. It's supposed to be finished next week, so we're just looking forward this week. Had not received it as of 7 o'clock today, tomorrow or early next week, and they requested in that email that we close the playground for the time being.
Will they be absorbing the expenses associated with this?
To my knowledge.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that's the point of the third-party engineer.
Got it, okay.
Did
And,
did they install the subgrade and everything like that?
Yes, sir.
They did? Yeah, okay. They're the ones.
I didn't hear that.
Yes.
Yeah. Install the subgrade for the.
Yeah, they did.
Service
They did.
contractor did.
And it was tested, I guess, I'm sure it was tested.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and.
Was this the question about the argument we had with them about the stone?
Yes,
There's
sir.
some of it, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The other
Gonna
thing
bite
is
'em on
is
the
that
butt
we,
here.
We would hope.
we knew about it. We made a temporary fix, as Spencer said, but Hurricane Elaine last week did a number on.
And
that's why.
closed indefinitely.
We're supposed to be hearing from them tomorrow,
Like I
next
said,
week.
yeah, we're
But
waiting
then
on
you
that.
gotta get them down here to fix it.
Where are they
Yes, sir.
located?
The playground company, I believe, is out of Nashville. I'm not entirely sure. It's somewhere in Tennessee. Yeah.
We'll have fun getting here, won't they?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Have to go up through 81.
The playground,
under the warranty.
the surface contractor was out of Florida. so.
Got it.
I did notice that our aerobics pad has a section
That's still
peeling
under
up.
the warranty period too.
All right, well,
just wanted to let you
some
know.
of the mamas are not happy that things closed.
That's very possible.
We don't
The
disagree.
quote is my granddaughters aren't getting any younger. The conversation at my house, I know.
So, the quicker we can get that remedy and reopen,
Yes, sir.
the better we all go feel
Him
about
on
it.
his ways about golf cart.
And we still want
My
those
dog's
shade
been loose
screens.
twice down there.
We're investigating that.
And the shade screens are being engineered, right?
We're investigating with an engineer, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. And then you have an update on Loach and Cross Street, on-street parking?
Yes, sir. I was not here last meeting, but Michael informed our engineering department we were to investigate on-street parking for Loach and Cross, where the new restaurant is going. So,
Pollo Loco.
yes, sir. So the engineering staff went out in the field, investigated north of the intersection of Loach and Cross Street. We measured from backup curb to backup curb is 28 feet, so it is feasible to add on-street parking. In your packets, I believe you have a sketch. I'm not sure if it's up-to-date one with the 8-foot spaces, which we changed last night. We also investigated 9.5-foot and 8.5-foot parking spaces, but that would narrow your driving lanes. So I looked at, did some research, and the minimum desired by the Federal Highway Administration is 8 feet for on-street parking for parallel. And we were able to fit six 8-foot by 23-foot parking spaces on Loach Street. And we're basically looking for direction, as if you're okay with that, we'll bring something, more official documents to vote on at a later date.
Time for questions. Anybody got any?
That's on the restaurant side, right?
Yes, sir.
We did not put any on the homeowner's side, not to interfere with their driveways.
No, I think that'll make it a lot more, less chaotic.
Yes.
If
And they're gonna, probably the restaurant patrons, if they're running in and grabbing something, are gonna do
Yeah.
that anyway.
Yeah.
Boy, surprised they're not parking uptown to go run in and get
They are, Mayor.
I know that.
So, Mayor, if the council likes this, we'll come back with a formal ordinance to establish the parking and the times and all that.
In engineering department's opinion, this is adequate?
Is adequate. It allows for 20-foot driving lanes, which is 10-foot travel lanes for north and north and south, and that is the minimum desirable for. And as with the traffic flow being as it is, it's not going to be that big of an
But the
issue.
minimum's 18, but.
If the council's okay with this, Mayor, we'll move forward with coming back to you with an
Better word
ordinance.
might be typical.
Typical, yeah.
Okay, any questions? What are your thoughts?
We'll, if it's okay with the consent of the council, Mayor, we'll move forward.
Okay. Good by me.
Consensus? Consensus?
Good by
Yes.
me?
It's going through anyway.
Yes.
A consent.
Yes.
We're gonna park it anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Consents.
Be a big white Ram truck parked out there every day.
Yep.
All right, so you got,
You know, that's something you just made an unintended consequence. We may get another, request come back for us to be, 1 or 2 hour parking.
We'll probably forward to the council, with parking limits.
recommendation to.
Once you paint them spaces,
Yeah.
you won't
When
be
we
the same mess I had
establish-
over on Rich Avenue.
Yep.
Well, yeah, I would not be in
Only
favor of
once.
putting on-street parking there if we don't put time limit, you know.
That's part of the plan.
It's only being put there to accommodate the lack of parking for the restaurant. So anybody that parks there all day or all night
Or all week
or all week,
with the junk trailer and the truck.
um,
Not that I've got any specific examples.
With a license plate number.
well, I do. In front of my building, there's trucks sitting there 24 hours a day for weeks at a time.
That's what was going on in front of Mom's house.
All right, so,
Right, we'll move forward, Mayor. We'll come back with time recommendations too.
all right. If you can't eat pollo loco in an hour,
Absolutely.
something's wrong.
Yep.
That's right.
And all the employees will take all the parking.
Right.
All right, Mr. Patton, you have 8A, which is a change order for the McCrary Ballpark.
Yes, sir. Council, in your packets, you have change order number 3 for Macquarie Ballpark project between City of Asheboro and Rogers Construction. This is a cleanup item with the original amount bid did not include sales tax for some of the subcontractors, and then totaling an amount of $42,946. Being that this is sales tax, the city can apply for reimbursement from the state, and then we'll get it at the end of the year. Staff recommends approval of the change order.
Exchange order dated June 3rd.
Yeah, we get it back.
It's
We
a-
have to go through
We don't know why the state does this round robin,
When-
but they do.
When did they do the last work out there?
Last work,
Were that Rogers on site?
Rogers on site would have been end of '23, and then they were waiting on the taxes from their, tax reimbursement request from their subcontractors, and,
Why was the tax not included? I mean, it's typically included as part of the contract.
yes, sir, I'm aware, I was not with the city at the time these contracts were made, so I'm not sure why that was left.
Okay. All right, well, that's fine. I'm
Yeah.
just asking.
And it wasn't designed,
I do have some information relating to that. Sorry to go out of order or anything. I have been doing some research on this afternoon, and I had a conversation with Chris Mabry at Rogers Builders. And among some other questions going back and forth with him, he shared with me that the original contract is a lump sum contract, and he provided that to me because I asked for more detail on this change order because it said taxes, and I'm like, well, I added up my taxes that have been submitted on, with pay applications, and I only had $8,000 submitted. So I'm like, okay, why, there's 42,000 and I've only got pay apps for 8,000. And what he shared, and I asked for more detail, he emailed back to me and said that the change order is a lump sum per our contract agreement with the city, so the total value of the change order also includes GC's fee, insurance, and bonds. So I asked him to give me more detail. He called me at that time, and he said that the original contract, sales tax was excluded, and the plan discussed at the original contract was that the city was going to be paying any invoice that had sales tax on it. And they submitted those sales tax invoices along with the pay apps, but to us, they looked like it said a sales tax report, so it looked like the sales tax report that we're supposed to get with our pay apps, with the application, with the documentation behind it to explain it. So he said that he had a conversation with Mr. Ogburn, who said just pay the invoice and we'll do a change order at the end of the contract. Now, looking back in my notes, I was asked to do a change order in July that referenced there were four four change orders that had been received: change order 1, change order 2, change order 4, and change order 5. And one of those change orders was for $20,000 for sales tax. So apparently it was somewhat in July, and Mr. Ogburn is more privy. I'm just sharing what Mr. Mabry shared with me today. That July change order had $20,000 allocated for sales tax. And so they kept paying, they paid up to that, but they have more sales tax, about 50 some odd total sales tax. I've got 8,000 of it. They have not presented anything more to us at this time. And he said that that would be presented with a final pay app that cannot be processed until after we process this change order. So to answer the questions of why it wasn't included, it was specifically excluded from the contract. Now, why he didn't share, he just said that. And the reason why it got included was because there was apparently a misunderstanding about were we supposed to be paying those or not. As far as on the staff level, we weren't aware of that. And when it came to light, then there was a change in discussion about how they would handle it. So that's why it was not originally included.
He said it was a lump sum contract?
That's specifically what he said.
Everything on here is guaranteed maximum price, which is not lump sum. And I'm not on you, I'm just saying everything he refers to, the guaranteed maximum price and the net change order, and that changed the guaranteed maximum price to $4 million and some, and got, everything's the new guaranteed maximum price. Do we have the number of how much we've actually paid them?
We have paid them. I think we've paid them $4,303,309, and this is based on pay application 10, and I did tie it down to the accounts payable checks that we've written to them today. And they're
$4,303,000.
$4,303,309, yes.
So somewhere there's a $12,000 bust in that.
Yeah, that's what I was
I
getting at.
have an open purchase order for $11,861. So apparently, as I understand it, the $42,946 plus the $11,861 is what will balance the contract based on their expenses.
Well, that
You
sounds
talk
like
to him?
that math works, whatever it means.
I don't have I asked for documentation, and he said that documentation will come with the last pay app.
Did he send
But this was a
receipts with it that shows
conversation
the
at
sales
4:40.
tax paid?
Pardon me?
Did he send receipts that shows the sales tax paid, specific receipts?
I specifically asked for the 42,000, and I do not have that information at this time.
So you hadn't been able to reconcile back any of what they're.
I cannot reconcile to the 42,000 because I don't have the documentation. Mr. Mabry said, and this conversation was at 4:45, so he didn't have he said that I would get that information after the change order was approved, and he would be reconciling everything and sending us a really big sales tax.
Well, but the sales tax,
What was paid.
the change order has nothing to do with generating the sales tax at this time. I mean, he can get us the sales tax. I'll make a motion that we table this until she gets the correct information and look at it next month.
Hoping for that. Well, that's what, you've got to do that. I mean,
Yeah.
because clearly he's not filled out the right form.
And just wait until the.
You gotta supply the invoices, and you gotta fill out the application for sales tax reimbursement.
Do it
and
all
you
the
can
time.
turn it into the state and get your money.
Yeah.
If you don't have that backup, they won't send you no money.
Correct. And the
Okay,
only
we have a
document,
motion.
Yeah, I know exactly.
I only have documentation for about $8,000, and that was a couple of years spent, so I've already
I
submitted
think he
for
needs to
those.
come up with some more before we go down that.
Yes.
road.
What's the open purchase order for?
That is retainage.
Oh, the retainage.
Well, that's
Okay.
good.
Now, I will say that,
Order for retainage?
It was it was a part of the contract purchase order.
Yeah, well, retainage just, I mean, just don't.
Yeah, it's-
Yeah,
It should just be request for retainage, but whatever.
on pay app 10, it says, balance to finish including retainage.
okay. Well, you gotta repay, I understand the retainage part, we're just,
Um,
So that's why I
the way
said
it's
send
in
something
the
to me, because I thought we were finished.
yeah, I did too. That was,
That's my whole point.
And we didn't
And if
get,
we didn't pay the sales tax, then if he paid it, then we need to pay it, and we need to get reimbursed. That was all.
Yeah, wait.
That's around Robin, but.
I mean, I know it's a watch.
He's got some live documentation. I wouldn't pay him a penny till he gets his act straight.
All right, we have a motion
Not pay him a penny.
by Mr. Cogden to table this
Finish the research, we'll be back.
for more information, and, I mean, it's been this long, it can wait 30 more days.
Well,
Exactly.
I know Todd Joyce, and he'll get it straight, but he's gonna have to get it straight.
Okay, do I have a second?
second.
Second, Ms. Heath. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
I thought we had paid
I
the
don't have
retainage.
that form.
We've been holding on to it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council.
Thank you.
It tells you enough to tell you it ain't telling.
So we need to continue item 8B as well, correct?
Yeah.
Debbie?
Yes.
So we continue item 8B as well, Mayor.
All
That
right,
was part of your motion,
That's
wasn't
part
it,
of the
Joey?
motion.
That we table part B too?
Second.
have a motion and a second to table item 8B. The second was Mr. Moffett. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. All right. Mr. Nuttall, I believe you're back up, for a carbon reduction program grant funding.
We just wanted to give the council a brief update on where we stand with that carbon reduction program grant funding. If you recall, this was an application to DOT to help launch the Zoo City Loop. This was an application that was submitted probably about 18 months ago now. Last year, we did receive word that our application had been awarded. We have been kind of awaiting information and direction from the DOT on how that how those funds would be executed and what the terms of that funding would be. So we're talking about $440,000 specifically under the carbon reduction program funding. Again, to purchase 4 electric light transit vehicles. Those are what's necessary when the city's ready to start the Zoo City Loop fixed route service. Since we learned of the award last year, our staff, Randolph Senior Adults Association staff, have had several conversations with the DOT about the funding in the program. We reported to DOT that our initial match for those grant funds was not appropriated in this year's city budget. But that we believe that there's still interest on the city's behalf in obtaining that grant funding and providing that transportation service in the future. I can report that Randolph Senior Adults, who would be expected to be our partner in this endeavor, continues to be willing to work with us and reports that it does receive regular inquiries from the public about the availability of that service. I think Mark and Tawana have been here several times, and we've talked about our goal to get this service going, but it was difficult to get funded in the current fiscal year budget, and that's why we've continued to have these conversations with the DOT staff about where we are and how to proceed. So through those continuing conversations, DOT came back and indicated that they had found a way to increase the federal carbon reduction program funding, this one-time funding to help with startup costs for the service from $440,000 to $586,668. So an increase of about $140,000 that they would be able to allocate the city for this project. That would thereby reduce our match from $293,000 to just over $146,000. That means we still would have local funds that we would have to put towards a project to initiate it. And it also means, like we've said from the beginning, once we initiate it, those ongoing operational costs will be there and will be steady moving forward. We do expect that those costs, once we start this service, if we start the service, will be in excess of $200,000 a year to provide this fixed route service. So today where we are, for us to proceed, and this is very similar to the sidewalk conversation that we just had, for us to take the next step, we need to come to you to see if you want to authorize us to request the DOT to present the city with the agreement. And it would be, in our view, if you're going to do that, it would be for the new funding amount of $586,000 that we would ask you to consider if you feel inclined to authorize that. Obviously, you have the ability to withhold that authorization and say, for whatever reason, we don't want to proceed. The other option that we've talked about is deferring a decision until maybe later in this fiscal year, and it may help us to have a better idea of revenues and expenses and programming of that as we start preparing for the next fiscal year. The downside is I don't know how long, especially in light of the, what the state's going to be facing in terms of transportation, the federal government's going to be facing in terms of federal rate transportation funding, how long this offer of an additional grant funding will be available. We have been told that we're not at risk at this point of the initial $440,000 going away anytime soon. We do have some time to come to them and ask to execute that agreement. That could be next fiscal year if you feel we're in a position to start that. And so we come to you for direction as to how do you want us to proceed in light of this offer from the DOT that they, at least the last time we talked, and that was prior to all the tragedy of Helene, that there was some additional carbon reduction program funding that they would make available towards the initiation of the project. So again, it's authorization to request the agreement, and we would see what that agreement says and present that to you. It could be, let's hang tight and hold off for now until a future meeting to have this conversation, or perhaps as a part of the budget. Or if you believe it's we're just really not there, then we need to tell them that we are not ready to proceed and don't anticipate being ready to proceed with the funding the Zoo City Loop.
Okay, so this might be hard to answer, but the
Sure.
agreement, since you haven't seen the agreement.
Yes, ma'am. That's the challenge.
What would that commit us to? Do you have any sense around
And that has been the biggest, my biggest frustration with this project is they will not provide us the agreement and the terms of that until we tell them that we want to move forward.
Okay.
I do think we would have the ability to decline to execute that agreement once we see it. I don't think that may hurt us down the road in a future endeavor, but in my view, it's perfectly reasonable for us to see an agreement before we commit to those terms. This is a unique program. We know that the funding was, and what we asked for was specifically to purchase those vehicles, right, for the service. What I'm curious about is will there be stipulations in how long do we have to operate that service before that money is seen as kind of ours, and those vehicles are ours to use. Those are all valid questions. That's why we've been asking, we've been trying to get the agreement from them to give you the information. They want to know that we're in a position to kind of take that next step before they go through the process of preparing that formal agreement with us.
Having been through Floyd and Fran and the 2002 ice storm and the 2014 ice storm, the federal government will be clawing back money any way that they can. So my best counsel to you, the council, is to give Trevor and myself and Debbie the ability to proceed, force them to write the agreement.
Right, right.
Then let's get it here, and if there's something we negotiate with them, we will. But this is, FEMA announced today that if you were damaged by both Helene and whichever what was the next one? Milton. You have to, you're eligible for 2 FEMA applications. So it's just beginning, but we know they're already clawing back. The General Assembly met yesterday or Tuesday and approved the 10% match for FEMA out of their rainy day funds, what they call their fund balance. It's a long way to go, so I would take this deal and force them to write the agreement and see what happens.
Because the only negative of doing that, like Trevor said, is potentially if they go through that, then they could say, well, you didn't follow through on this, so we're not gonna.
But what changes?
Yeah.
I mean, is the traffic patterns in Asheboro, is the population?
Right.
I mean, it's all those
Exactly.
demographic and transportation factors they're using to, that's only gonna increase.
Right.
So I really don't think I really think we need to strike, and if we're gonna do it and move forward, we still have that our population is not evenly distributed.
Right.
The by and large, the retail and the medical and the goods are in this section and the people are in that section.
Well, I have people ask me about the transportation loop frequently.
And I don't think,
We do.
I think
I
it's
mean-
time to strike, and we still have to
Get our
figure.
name on the list for that money.
Right.
and pull
Exactly.
somewhere else.
Well, it's significant that 140,000 increase in the grant reduces our contribution significantly.
And
We've
we
talked about doing this loop for a good while now. We know it's necessary.
Yeah.
Council had it as a priority.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's time to go.
And we do think we can get some assistance with the 146 match,
Right.
with the one-time assistance, but
Right.
Yeah, and I will say, we, planned before we continue those conversations and were told that they would be able to give us some additional funding of the grant, where it was pretty much just to sit tight until the next fiscal year and see if you all wanted to try to do it at that point. We felt that once we were told that this additional funding could be made available, that's why we decided it was necessary to bring it back to you to see how you wanted to proceed.
Right. Right.
What type of action do we need?
We need a
Just
motion.
consensus? You need a motion.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, I'll make
If
the
you want to
motion.
proceed.
I'll make a motion that we authorize staff to request that NCDOT prepare the agreement related to funding for Zoo City Loop.
All right.
I like that.
Motion by Mr. Heath. Do I have a second?
Several months.
That's what
Several months,
It'll be
yeah.
more used in the sidewalks.
Second, Mr.
I
Burks.
think by people.
Discussion.
All constitutional.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Ms. Reeves, you have a couple of items, budgetary items. 10A is regarding the Sportsplex.
Yes, if you recall, in the past, we had allocated some funds from the state capital infrastructure improvement, am I getting the word right? The SCIF grant funds, the $2.5 million that we got from the state that came out of the Regional Economic Development Reserve. We allocated in our scope of work for those funds to go to Zoo City Sportsplex or McCrary Ballpark improvements. They had communicated that they would allow us to go retroactively with the invoices to match our fiscal year. I am recommending that we allocate the remaining funding from the SCIF fund to the Cone Health Zoo City Sportsplex Fund to cover new expenses expenses that were not included in Terry's contract but have been committed to. For example, primitive walking trails, fencing and apparatuses at the dog park, the bathroom at field number 2, 5 additional raised crosswalks, and overflow parking, which has been communicated to me that the parking is definitely needed as well. Plus some other things that may be, that Jimmy Cagle and his staff are working on cleaning up things and fixing some little things that were not considered in Terry's contract. I'm recommending an ordinance to approve to move $822,000 from the SCIF fund to Zoo City Sportsplex in the first amendment. And then the second one is just setting up the funding in the Zoo City Sportsplex fund. You do need to adopt them in order, the SCIF one first, and then the Cone Health Zoo City Sportsplex Fund Amendment second. Eventually, when we get all these items taken care of, I'd like to do some cleanup, in which I'm going to be giving some money back to the general fund for previous allocated funds that went to pay for earlier expenses before we knew we had this grant, similar to what I did at the end of the fiscal year this last year with some of our other projects.
Questions? Thank you, Ms. Reeves. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I move we approve the ordinance to amend the SCIF fund.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burks. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 2I.
Mayor, I move we approve the ordinance to amend the Cone Health Zoo City Sportsplex fund.
Have a motion to amend the Sportsplex Fund. Do I have a second? I'm sorry, what was it? Mr. Burke? Well, you woke up on the right side of the bed today, didn't you? Motion and a second. Any questions? Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Reeves, item 10B, you're gonna talk about a 48-unit multifamily affordable housing development, Memorial Square, and a couple of budgetary items there.
In a previous council meeting, council discussed a loan for Memorial Square. The agreement that came back to us did include all the recommended requests that you had, change of the interest and the increased payment on an annual basis. Since there was nothing that was contrary to what you guys asked for, it is now time to go ahead and execute and set up the funding. So before you is an ordinance to amend the general fund, setting up $650,000 as a loan at a 4% interest rate with payments of $26,000 per year and a maturity date of December 31, 2046 for that agreement. And then following after that is an ordinance to amend the Housing Development Fund, as similar with the one with Cone Health. You need to approve the ordinance to amend the general fund, allocating the funding, and then an ordinance to amend, you approve the ordinance to amend the Asheboro Housing Development Fund, placing that money into the fund.
Questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion on 10B I, ordinance to amend the general fund.
Mayor, I move we approve the ordinance to amend the general fund.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Heath. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 2I.
Mayor, I move we approve the ordinance to amend the Asheboro Housing Development Fund.
Have a motion by Mr. Bell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Swears. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. On item 11, I find it necessary to recuse myself from this discussion as a downtown property owner. I will entertain a motion to recuse the mayor for the purposes of item 11.
Mayor, I move we allow your recusal for item 11 and chairing the proceeding.
We have a motion by Mr. Bell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Heath. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. I am recused, and Mr. Moffett, you can introduce 11A.
Item 11, the public hearing, allocation of $20,000 to Downtown Asheboro Incorporated, a North Carolina nonprofit corporation for the Preserve Asheboro Grant Program. Item A, Finance Director Deborah Reeves will provide the initial testimony. Ms. Reeves?
Yes, at a prior council meeting at the economic development hearing in the, just recently held, we allocated funding to Downtown Asheboro Incorporated for operating costs, plus included in the funding that was approved was $20,000 for a grant program. At the time we presented it to them, we did not have the details on the grant program, and therefore I did not know that it the way we did the advertising for that economic development hearing was not adequate and appropriate for this particular funding. Therefore, there is no budget amendment attached to this because I do have the funding in place already as a general allocated amount that is in the budget. But we have to have a new public economic development hearing because as the grant highlights have been refined, it is tied to real property, which is a different type of public hearing. So we are having a new public hearing for economic development to discuss this $20,000 again and properly address it with a proper type of public hearing. Now, the public hearing notice gave a detailed narrative of the Preserve Asheboro grant. It does procure historic preservation consultant services, property, there's requirements relating to location, and the funding is capped at $5,000 per property. For the specific details on the grant program, if there are no more questions about how we got here and back forth, and now we're back here again, then I would introduce Addie Corder in order to discuss the grant program in more detail.
Thank you, Debbie. Good evening, council members. Asheboro is a designated North Carolina Main Street community, and what that means is we are dedicated to economic development through historic preservation. We would not have this wonderful asset here in our backyard if we flattened it and built a mall and tried to recreate it. So the purpose of this is to encourage thoughtful preservation as economic development in our downtown district. The state and federal government are big encouragers of thoughtful historic preservation, so they have generated state and federal tax credit programs to aid historic property owners in maintaining and preserving their historic architecture. So those are complicated to navigate at best, and so the goal of this is to encourage property owners downtown who are interested in historic preservation to leverage a historic preservation consultant who can help them get through the State Historic Preservation Office paperwork, the National Park Service paperwork, and continue to get through parts 1, 2, and 3 of that process. This builds off of the action that the city took at the end of 2022 to list the downtown district on the National Register of Historic Places. So that listing allows downtown property owners to leverage historic tax credits without having to take additional steps.
So what I'm understanding, the $20,000 that is in the budget, but just in a different title, if you will. So it's not new money.
Correct.
the funds are available for a property owner to get assistance to have the study and the application work completed.
Yes.
And then upon success, the tax credits would theoretically cover the cost of the changes, improvements, or whatever.
Yes.
So it's kind of priming the pump for a win-win.
Yes.
Win there. We get a nicer building downtown and that sort of thing. Okay.
It would be at least 4 properties, if not more. right?
Yes,
I mean, 'cause you
yes.
Any further questions for Ms. Reeves or Ms. Corder? Thank you, Ms. Corder. And at this time, we will ask for comments from the public. If anyone from the public is here that has any inquiries or questions for this program. Seeing none, hearing none, I'll request for an action from City Council. How's your
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move we approve the allocation from where it's currently situated in the budget to the Preserve Asheboro Grant Program.
Have a motion, Mr. Bell, second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burks. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The vote passes. We'll now reinstate his mayor.
Mr. Nuttall, I believe you're up with item 12.
Oh, yeah. I am.
Are you? Or did I miscount?
Wake up, Trevor.
Usually my stuff's very close together, but I'm all over the place here this evening.
So I'm short of the assistant city manager and the mayor. Proceeding along.
You're right.
Thank you.
Glad you got promoted.
We, following discussion at the September council meeting, the staff was asked to just present you all with some information as it relates to any regulatory issues that may be discouraging infill development, particularly within the center city planning area. Infill, just so we're on the same page, is generally defined as development or redevelopment of underutilized property. Typically, it doesn't require new public infrastructure, and it's usually within your urbanized area. So we're talking about redeveloping property that already is served by city services. It may be underutilized or vacant, but generally it is more efficient, less costly for a city to provide services to a development that is infill development versus new construction that may be on the edges of the city. So we were asked to talk about whether there may be, in our view at least, zoning regulations, and in particular, this conversation came about from a discussion related to downtown building height limitations that we think, and we'll defer to you on after I give you this information, might be discouraging that infill. But we wanted you to have the information for you to tell us if you think that we need to look at some changes to the code. So really, I wanted to focus just on height because that was the primary source, I think, of this conversation. And just so you know, in the downtown area, height is regulated within our 3 tiers. And I'm going to put on a map here. So this is, by code, this is actually a mapped boundary within the zoning ordinance that talks about, defines the center city planning area. In each one of these areas, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, the city code establishes different maximum height allowances that a property owner can make use of by right, meaning they don't necessarily need your permission to develop in that manner. So if we just kind of zoomed in a little closer to just to give you an idea of what tier 1 is primarily, but within tier 1, our zoning ordinance permits up to 65 foot of building height. Within tier 2, and tier 1, of course, is that peach-colored area on this map. Most of us would recognize it as the traditional central business district. Tier 2 is that darker green color. The ordinance allows 45 feet by right of building height. And then as you move beyond Tier 1 and Tier 2 to that lighter green color, our height permissiveness steps down to 35 feet. So you have your most, under the city's development regulations, you have your most intense development within the CBD, and it from a height standpoint, steps down from there. I do want to say, though, because we implement the conditional zoning process here, each one of these numbers, just like any regulation within our zoning ordinance, you all have the ability to look at a specific project, a specific set of circumstances, and consider whether a regulation warrants any type of modification because of unusual circumstances, or because you think approval of that conditional zoning district just promotes what the city's adopted plans are attempting to achieve. And so these numbers provide a figure that a property owner can work with staff administratively on a project, and it sets our boundary by which we can approve building height, projects with building height. It does not necessarily limit you all, and it doesn't limit you all if you were to receive a conditional zoning application, such as the one we received last month when we were talking about 3 stories versus 4 stories. And so the other kind of relief valve, if you will, from the regulation is what has always been in place, and that's a variance process that is not handled by you, but is handled by the city's planning board acting as a board of adjustment. So we have several different, there are 2 processes that can be used to give some flexibility to these figures that I'm providing here. The other thing I will say is there is some flexibility built into the code itself in terms of building height in cases where a project is increasing setbacks from property lines. That can allow additional height above what those figures I provided on the previous slide. So, you know, when we look at this from the fact that we've got a conditional zoning process that can let anybody bring a specific project to you and tailor make the zoning district to fit their project, and you all get to decide how much of a deviation you think is reasonable. Considering we have that process, we continue to have the variance process, considering the code offers some built-in flexibility. Our recommendation is not to make any changes at this point. We don't believe there is a compelling need at this time to make any changes to those building height standards that I just provided. We do think it warrants monitoring, though, and evaluating and probably reporting back to you all on what we're seeing in terms of project intensity and what conversations we're having related to height, to make sure we don't get to that point where maybe there is a discouragement of this infill development. So we did, the big thing we wanted to do is to make sure that, number one, you know how building height is set forth within our development rules, but also to remind you all that you have some inherent ability to look at height beyond what that code sets aside.
Go back to your larger map. Yeah, that one right there. The portion of Tier 3 from the center city going out to the bypass, just as an example.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of that, in my opinion, could be probably just as easily addressed as just making it Tier 2. You know, maybe in that area, just to having conversations,
sure,
so to speak here, because the project that we looked at that we all talked about, the rules essentially designed that thing. Time he had to do the stormwater retention, you know, and meet the other requirements, that put him in a monetary scenario that drove the number of units. You know, then the number of units, the price of the project, as you duly noted, and Joey can probably speak, I know can speak to it way better. That 4th floor, when you start that elevator, he might need 6 floors probably to pay for that thing. So it just snowballs from there. So I don't even know if 65 feet would have fixed the scenario to where he would have had less footprint to gain. 10 parking spaces,
Sure.
I don't know, you
Yeah,
know.
sure.
That's a good example, and it's also a poor example, but the restrictions drew the plans based on their economic result is kind of what I'm, so a little more height, it could help with it.
Certainly, the plan that you saw, you know, our rules had a bearing on the plan that you all saw. And again, in large part, the plan complied with what the city's rules are. It was just that parking deviation, which was the big one. So, I think it's fair to say that maybe an examination of the current tier boundaries. This is in essence a map that's been on the books for 20 years, relatively unchanged. We've had some added to tier 1 and I think some added to tier 2, but we have not done a whole scale, large type of overlay rezoning process. And the only way to do this is through the rezoning process. This is considered a zoning district in essence, and so whatever we change has to go through notification, property owner, and then come to you. But
We have 65 feet, so you gotta assume at least that number is acceptable to our fire department. In some manner, maybe they can do more, I don't,
When these were
can't
established,
speak to them.
when we established these, the fire department was consulted and they agreed to these numbers.
So,
So it may be time you review that 65 to 85 or something. We certainly have the equipment to go that
I
high.
was gonna say, we have different equipment now, so I think, the boundaries can stand some looking at, even with these numbers.
Well, yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, you look at Scarborough Street and Cranford Street being tier 1, and you put 65-foot building on a one-way street. Well, one of them's one-way.
Yeah.
And one of them's a very narrow two-way street. So,
And they
I
back
mean,
up to a 45 lot it's not even a block.
Yeah. So, I mean, so the boundaries may be our first focus.
Yeah, and the Remax building's wasting a good 50-foot elevation.
I think what you'll find is the tier 3, I think the distinction for tier 3 was the proximity to residential. And so as we started getting into what felt more like residential neighborhoods, that's when the height, at the time at least, it was seemed appropriate to cap that height. But certainly we can report back, study the boundary, see what has changed in 20 years, and it may not be that these height limitations that are permitted by right change. Perhaps we come back with a tweak to the boundary.
We are a community in transition, and we're talking about some significantly transitional areas.
Sure. We certainly can do that.
That's what triggered me to ask you to remind us of these, was one comment that Mayor Pro Tem Moffitt said, if we're gonna become more urban, perhaps we need to look a little more urban. And that this, if we re-examine this and see what we can do, I don't expect us to boom overnight like that, but the growth is coming, and it may be vertical.
Certainly seems more expensive today than it was when this map was
Monetary restrictions on
done.
Trade Center right here.
But thank you all for giving me that time.
Very good.
Last one, Mayor, I'll move right into 12B. Real briefly, just wanted to update you on the pending vacancies on the city planning board. You should have a memo in your packets. The following city residents have applied to serve on the planning board upon the expiring term of Mr. Richie Buffkin. If you don't have that memo, apologize. Mr. Buffkin has served for a number of years. His term ends on January 1, 2025. We have 4 city residents who've applied for appointment. That's Taylor Trogdon Jr., who has the oldest application on file that was submitted to us back in 2021. The other 3 were submitted following our recent announcement for soliciting applications. So that's Rob Risley, Wayne Moore, and Mark Cannon have all applied in the month of August. Your policy that we will follow and look to you for direction. Generally, the council can always choose a person based on the list that's been provided to you. The process also provides that you may forward the list to the planning board for the board to make comment and to return to you at least 2 candidates for you to consider. And so one of the things we are looking for here this evening is if you want to consider an appointment based on the list that you have, or if you would like to forward those applicants to the planning board, we'll be happy to do that and then bring you back their input. The final thing I'll say is we also have a developing vacancy for one of our 2 extraterritorial planning jurisdiction seats. It's Mr. David Henderson has let us know that he will be stepping down January 1 or before if a replacement is found. You all know that that ETJ representative is actually appointed by the Board of County Commissioners. We have shared this developing vacancy with the board. We've also shared that we will be happy to send their way any applications that we receive for that board. But the primary goal tonight is to get input from you all if you want to consider an appointment based on these 4, or if you want for us to go to the planning board.
I'd prefer to forward the list to the planning board. I mean, they're the ones who are going to be working with the people, so it seems like they should have some input, so that's my preference.
They interview them, the planning board?
They will have the ability to be invited,
process
yeah.
was.
No, there's not a formal process. Sometimes we will provide the applications to the board and they'll have a conversation. Other times, and always, the applicants are free to attend that meeting and say whatever they'd like. So really, it can depend on the situation, but they'll have the ability to talk to those candidates. So.
I'm along with Kelly and Charles too.
Seems to be consensus. Yeah.
We get names and then at least 2, if not more.
That's right. So it seems to be consent. We'll take that process and report back to you following their process.
I would it be appropriate or inappropriate for us to be in the audience if they have interview with those people to hear the process ourselves?
Well, I don't think I would ever say it's inappropriate for council to be in attendance.
There would be no issue with attending. It sometimes would sort of short circuit the process if you participated in that.
Just hear the information exchange, I mean, to get a flavor of what they're sending to us. I mean, not to.
There would be no legal prohibition for you being in attendance.
Maybe it's a
hearing.
terrible idea, I just wonder.
Yeah, I don't offer opinions on good or bad, but it's just legally, it's not prohibited to attend.
Okay,
Thank you, Mayor.
thank you.
If the council knows of someone who's in the ETJ and would be interested in serving, should they let?
We would very much appreciate any recommendations for service on the ETJ seat that we can provide to the county. Thank you for that.
Great. Ms. Chappie, I'm sorry you had to wait till last.
That's a hyperlink, Trevor.
Welcome to being the new employee.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here this evening and excited to report to you that the Cone Health Zoo City Sportsplex webpage is now up and running. First, I'd like to briefly but publicly thank Octave Marketing. Here in Asheboro, Octave had a hand in developing an early website for the complex, and the owner worked with us recently to transfer over control of the zoocitysportsplex.com domain whenever we needed to incorporate Cone Health branding into the webpage name, the URL. So now zoocitysportsplex.com will redirect you to Cone Health zoocitysportsplex.com. I'll just give you kind of a brief overview of some of the features of the website. It should pretty much be everything you would expect a website for a sports complex to be and do. We have information about the facility as well as, some FAQs, photos. Every facility within the complex is listed here with more information on them and the ability to reserve the ones that are reservable. It'll direct you to staff and they'll manually respond. It's not an automated process at this time.
Elisa,
And-
quick question.
Sure.
Under About, it looked like there was a sign up for event alerts.
Yes,
Can you
ma'am.
talk a little bit about that?
Yes, that is something that I wanted to point out. You may be familiar with this feature on the asheboro.nc.gov website. If you're not, please sign up for those alerts. But this website is managed or hosted by the same company that hosts our Asheboro website, so it'll operate in a similar manner. But you are able to go here and click on the sign up for alerts button, and right now we have these two categories for you to, it's a very seamless process. You'll type in an email address and then it'll prompt you to plug in a phone number, and you can sign up for either or both of those ways to get notified right now about news events, which are featured on the homepage, and alerts, which you saw in the bottom right-hand corner. So our goal is to keep that updated regularly with any big events that are going to affect the area. And then our messaging will kind of hopefully encourage the public and local business owners to sign up for these events. So no one is surprised when there are thousands of people kind of in the area on the weekends. And yeah, so great thing. So I invite you to browse the website at your leisure. But if there are any questions or comments, I'll take those now.
And how long has this been online?
It went live,
A week ago.
yeah, about a week.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've, been testing some different things now that it's real and out in the world, and so it's been polished the last day or so.
It's exciting.
Good job.
Thank you.
To you, Mayor. All you, Mayor. Upcoming event slide.
Walker, I want you to do this. The more I talk, the more I cough. I don't have anything, it's right there.
Take a picture of that, rather than write it down.
We have this month's upcoming events. Saturday, October 12th, from 8 a.m. to noon, Randolph County Household Hazardous Waste and Pesticide Disposal and unused medication drop-off. They will not be taking ammunition at the Hillside Shopping Center. On Saturday, October 12th, from 8 to noon, also is sold out the United Way cereal sale by Centennial Park. Saturday and Sunday, also on the, all day, the Carolina Pumpkin Classic Lacrosse Tournament at the Sportsplex, the Cone Health Zoo City Sportsplex.
Let me add a comment here.
Yeah.
Last weekend, Velocity Soccer Club out of the Raleigh-Durham Triad area, had a large tournament, and they sent all the girl teams, female teams, up here to play. They rented the park. We had 40 teams, a good 1,500 or more players and their parents. It went well, great weather. The guys, as part of Velocity, went to Efland, the other side of Raleigh town down there. Obviously has a facility that can accommodate that, but they sent all the girls up here, and I had interaction with some of the officials, the adult officials that call these games, and they just rave about our park and the facility. And the only complaints I got last Saturday was the playground being closed. But, so, go ahead.
I don't see the no tie fair on the list for Saturday.
That's Saturday night.
And we're supposed to be saying, and anyone that wants tickets, pick them up from Joe tomorrow.
That's right, Joanne has some. I'm sure there's tickets, but there's still.
That's Chamber of Commerce, no tie fair.
At Solar Point at the zoo. It's a Mexican buffet, DJ, and beverages. On October 15th, Tuesday, from 1 to 4, the Breast Cancer Walk Charity Event by the Randolph County. It's also at the Cone Health Sportsplex. Wednesday, the 16th, begins at 10:30 a.m. at the Recreation Center, some unknown event.
That's
On Friday.
employee appreciation.
Employee appreciation.
It was the invisible preparation for Halloween. Friday, October 18th, from 3 to 4:30, Asheboro High School Homecoming Parade, which will be downtown.
16th is
Also on the 18th at 7 p.m., Friday Night Bluegrass, Tim Moon's Talent Showcase Part 1 at the Sunset. The following Saturday, October 19th, from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., Run with a Purpose 5K by Sean Bright Foundation, and that's about how long it'd take me to run one, crawl one. That'll be started by Centennial Park. Saturday, the 26th at 9 a.m., Your Choice is Randolph Pickleball Tournament, which will continue to grow in popularity, I'm sure, at the Sportsplex. Saturday, October 26th, from 4 to 6, Trick or Treat downtown on North Street. And then Tuesday, the 29th, 6 p.m., Capital Improvement Plan Workshop at the City Hall. That's all that's on our list.
Now, that's it, if the council would hold that 29th, and please hold the 30th, the Wednesday. We do not, hopefully do not have to have it Wednesday night, but, there's also the city manager search special meetings we gotta have. The capital improvements plan workshop, we tend to have on 2 different nights. The first night will be with our consultant, Waterworth.
We're just going over our plan is to go over the expenditures on the first meeting and then get some feedback from you guys and then schedule a second meeting to go over the revenue part on how to pay for it.
So what would the 30th
The
potentially be?
30th was an original date, but we've secured our contractor for the 29th, and I got that information close to.
Project meeting.
So are you saying we potentially do the 29th and the 30th?
No, just the
One or the other,
29th.
and then schedule a follow-up?
Then schedule.
Got it,
Yes.
got it.
Okay, all right. I'll leave Charlotte early. I can make that.
Sorry.
Anyway, very good.
There's one date missing, Walker.
It's what?
It's the 21st. It's Trevor's birthday.
That will require cake.
Okay,
A newsletter went out, yeah.
There's a lot going on, Mayor, you know, typically we're busy in, September, October, November, and we try not to do too much in December, but we probably will this month. It's exciting for me, at the other end of the career ladder, to see Spencer and Addie and Elisa here tonight. We're doing the right thing, and, again, I'm so proud of the police officers and firefighters. They did a great job, they're still up there. It should be comforting to know that when the state's knocked to its knees, you can lean on the people of Asheboro to come assist you. That should be comforting. Yes, it's expensive, I'm not saying that, but there's a reason why it's expensive too.
On Tuesday, the 29th, that's the ribbon cutting for Cone Health and Cancer Center.
In the morning?
That morning.
In the morning.
Now, we did not receive a group invitation for that. That came individually. Did all of you get it? Because they want a head count, but we did give them the names.
You know, they sent it out some time ago, but then I got another one like today or yesterday.
Yeah, they're
And I thought I'd
just a
already
reminder.
responded.
Yeah, I think there's 2 lists of people going around, so it'll be something to see. I know with our inspections team and,
Any of you get an invitation to a preview?
No.
I was told last weekend by Ryan that there was an invitation out there for a preview, but I didn't get it.
I think, I know I was just a low person on the telephone, but for sure I got one. And, it's like a meal, and it's a tour of the place and all that.
For the preview,
I guess that's what it's called. I can look at the email or forward it to you, but.
rank as privileged.
well, I gotta tell you,
I'm sure you got me mixed up with the other fire.
well, you guys interact with them quite a bit.
Yeah, we have,
But,
actually.
when they had their groundbreaking, and most of us were there, and they said they're gonna be ready to open by November 4th. Everybody looked at each other like, yeah, right.
I'll admit to that.
And damn if they didn't do it. They used Japanese lean building, methods, and they are right on schedule, if not a day or two ahead of schedule. Unbelievable. So, somebody I know rode through there the other day and said it is impressive. And they got 2 more buildings to build up there.
I'll sell a ticket.
And again, Mayor, you know, if their purpose, their reason for building that building, they'll tell you is part of cancer treatment and cancer management is a positive attitude. You know, I mean, you know, it's a terrible disease, and maintaining a positive attitude, and they want you to be comfortable in there, and they don't want it to feel like it's sort of Damocles hanging over you. So it's an impressive facility, and they have world-class healthcare. You have to give them credit. They provide world-class healthcare.
Okay, Kelly, got anything?
Yes, just to echo the thanks that's already been expressed to our public safety professionals who have been up in the mountains that we all continue to think about every day. And thank you, John, for scheduling the capital improvements plan workshop. I was going to ask about that, so I appreciate that that's scheduled. And then also, too, you might remember about a year ago, we added the homeless issue to our agenda so that we could have regular updates. And just with this recent influx, and I plan to say this before the comments tonight, but I really feel strongly that we should have it on our agenda as a standing item, because people don't understand all the efforts that the city continues to make to address this problem as best we can. So I'd just like to ask that it be put back on the agenda so we can share that work that we're trying to do.
Charlie?
It was nice to see the fall festival back in operation, beautiful weather. The crowds were good, the food was good, and the cleanup was, as always, spectacular.
They got out of there about 9 o'clock. Our cleanup guys, our street department, and you could hardly tell anybody been there on Sunday morning. They always do a good job. They've got it down pat. Clark?
Well, I'm glad we were spared most of Helene locally, unfortunately, you know, for our mountain folks. But our crews were busy, and I think we had 6 down trees, and you wouldn't know it by the end of the afternoon. So did a bang-up job locally, and thank goodness they didn't have more to do, but they handled it efficiently.
John?
That's all I said.
To follow up on that, Randolph Electric has contractors on the job in the mountain area, and they have direct employees on the job, and their direct employees took their bucket trucks and a lot of their line construction equipment up, and turns out that there were plenty of people to work but no trucks. The trucks got destroyed or damaged or whatever, and so Randolph Electric's trucks are being used by other people, and their guys are in Rutherford County filling in to reconstruct lines and stuff. So I don't think any of us can imagine what our first responders, our police and fire are dealing with. We've had firemen literally pulling bodies out. Our first crew showed up for a small mobile home park, and you couldn't tell there was ever a mobile home there. I mean, they were all gone. And most of the people that lived there were unaccounted for, because now they might have been evacuated, they might have been with friends and relatives, and since then, many of them have been accounted for, but I expect some of those probably perished. So, this, and the city of Asheboro, has 3 drop-off sites, APD, police department, fire department, and public works and a published list of things that they need. But right now, they're at the point where they're probably needing money more than anything. Cash to purchase the exact items they need and to get people, back to where they can at least, help, try to provide for themselves somewhat. So, if you've got friends and neighbors that are still wanting to help, please, direct them to just about any church in Randolph County, and, our public works, our PD, and our fire department. Go ahead.
Well, just, again, to echo the sentiment of our first responders to their efforts on the ground up there, the stories are so graphic that you hear coming back. It's just really hard to imagine. It's such a surprise in that area, no doubt. But, hopefully it'll get better over some period of time, and they'll remain all in our prayers.
Yeah, thanks to everyone who, because Addie and I have special connection up there in that part of the state, and I
What
know.
would that be?
It's a little place called Cullowhee down Jackson County, down where the Tuckasegee runs. But anyway, thankfully Jackson County wasn't hit as hard as some of the other areas of the state, but I do have friends that live in other counties out there. And I do know of a few of them that lost practically everything. But thankfully they still have their lives. And that's the most important thing, because the other things are just things. It's hard to replace those things, but if you have each other, you can continue on. On a lighter note, the Kiwanis Club hosted, since our last meeting, our Miss Randolph County Scholarship Pageant. And we have a new Miss Randolph County whose name is Jessica Hughes, and a new Randolph County teen, Cedriana Huffman. So if you see really smart girls running around town with shiny hats, that's them.
Congratulations. It's a good project.
Bill?
I went to the Talbot's Building Supply, had a fish fry, and I went and ate some fish there, and I just want to shout out to them, appreciate them staying in Asheboro. They're building a nice building there, office building, and to show their products. And also, stepped across the railroad track, the old building that's being fixed up, man, that really looks nice. I appreciate anybody that takes these old buildings and fixes them up. And I think Terry was doing that, or? Terry did that job.
Yeah, the Hunt
really
family.
looks super, man.
Hunt family that had Hunt Electric.
Yeah.
They totally remodeled it, and Terry said every time he thought he was through, they wanted to do something else.
Yeah.
And they have, I've been in there a few times, it's really nice, and they're gonna move their operation back down there.
Okay.
Hunt
Let's shout out
Electric
to them.
Supply.
Like I said, old buildings that are fixed up in
I hate
town
the
are really,
current
really.
location.
Hard to get to.
Good night to everybody.
Okay, thank you for being patient with us tonight. It was a long meeting. Always nice to have citizens that stay, and most citizens come and leave when their item's over, but by staying, you have a better appreciation for what we deal with. So, thank you for being here. Staff, thank you for all the hard work. Jonathan, did you have anything tonight?
I was just here to see y'all.
Well, I appreciate that. We're adjourned.
Who's here for the reflection?